Chapter 778. Mu Qingran nodded in agreement. Just as he was about to speak, Yishima's fist suddenly arrived. With a boom, his body was sent flying again, smashing down from the railing. Did you see that? Yishima was still educating fire. Fists are reason. You have to understand next time. Mu Qingran, who had fallen downstairs, spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard Yishima's words. He had really thought that Yishima was a reasonable person. In the end, this guy was too sinister, too shameless. He really was Jun Fingling's adopted son. His personality was exactly the same as hers. In the Wuhui continent, many people did not know about the Yi family's situation. However, since Mu Qingran had dealings with Yi Qi, how could he not know that Yi Jingchen's wife was Jun Fengling? It was said that Jun Fengling was a lowly woman who had bewitched the Yi family's young master, Yishima. She did not have any children and had only adopted a son, and her adopted daughter Yi Qi was adopted by Yi Jingchen. Jun Fengling was shameless. She would often start a fight at the slightest disagreement. Not only that, she was also jealous because a certain family had once wanted to give their daughter to Yishima as a concubine. In the end, this jealous woman had single-handedly charged to the door. Even though all the experts of that family had been mobilized, they had not been able to subdue her. What good could an adopted son that she had taken a liking to and adopted be? Mu Qingran clutched his chest and crawled up from the ground. However, at that moment, countless gold-seeking mice suddenly descended from the sky. They were so densely packed that it made one's hair stand on end. What? What is this? Mu Qingran almost fainted from fright. Seeing that the gold-seeking mice had climbed onto his body, he hurriedly waved his hand and shouted, "Go away!" The people from the Mu family were not any better. Those gold-seeking mice were especially cunning. They could not be shaken off or crushed, but they liked to burrow into his clothes. Feeling the soft and scholarly feeling of his clothes, everyone felt goosebumps all over their bodies. Yishima was also stunned. He looked at Yun Luofeng in surprise. He really did not understand where these gold-seeking mice had come from. Yun Luofeng ignored his gaze and walked downstairs. With every step she took, Mu Qingran's pupils constricted. She said through clenched teeth, "These gold-seeking rats are yours?" Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly, looking down at Mu Qingran from above. "Where is the Mu family's gold-seeking rat? What do you want?" Mu Qingran's pupils constricted. "I'm telling you, I definitely won't hand over these gold-seeking rats. Besides, you already have so many gold-seeking mice, so one more won't make much of a difference. I won't ask a third time. Where is the gold-seeking rat?" The girl's eyes were domineering as she stared coldly at Mu Qingran. "Gold-seeking rat is my son's prescription. I can't give it to you." Mu Qingran gritted her teeth. He could admit defeat, he could give in, but he would never hand over the gold-seeking rat. "What does your son's illness have to do with the gold-seeking rat? But you want to use the gold-seeking rat's life to exchange for your son's?" Mu Qingran snorted. "How can a rat's life compare to a human's? Beasts will always be beasts, but humans will always be humans. The lives of beasts are cheap, but human lives are precious. Don't tell me you don't understand this logic?" Even among the gold-seeking mice, he still stubbornly insisted on his own opinion. Moreover, he didn't think that these gold-seeking mice could cause him any harm. At most, they would only disgust him. Chapter 779. Mu Qingran's words had clearly infuriated the crowd. The rats' eyes widened, as if they wanted to eat Mu Qingran alive. Milk Tea passed through the swarm of rats and placed her paws on her waist. She held her head high as she walked toward Mu Qingran and stepped on his toes. "You said that our lives are worthless? Then let me tell you, in our eyes, the lives of everyone in the Mu family added together are worth less than one of ours." After saying these words, Milk Tea's gaze drifted towards Meng Meng, who was behind her. She winked at Meng Meng as if she was asking for credit. Meng Meng smiled cutely. That smile was like the sun, instantly warming Milk Tea's heart, causing his little heart to thump wildly. "I'll give you a chance. Release my clansmen. Otherwise, I'll eat you alive and not even let you leave with a whole corpse." In order to get Meng Meng's smile, Milk Tea turned around and stepped harder on Mu Qingran's toes. Mu Qingran's face was like a ghost's. His face went from ashen to pale, and his pupils dilated. It spoke? This gold-seeking rat actually spoke? Could it be it was a venerable? If Yun Xiao hadn't been powerful enough and Yishima hadn't suddenly appeared, perhaps Mu Qingran would have gone mad with excitement after encountering a venerable gold-seeking rat. But now there was only despair in his heart. Hand over my clansman, Milk Tea said arrogantly. Squeak squeak. Squeak squeak. The other gold-seeking rats squeaked and glared angrily at the group from the Mu family. If they dared to disobey, they might just swarm them and eat them all. Mu Qingran became dispirited. He no longer looked as aggressive as when he'd charged into the inn, nor did he look as proud and high-spirited as before. His entire being exuded a dejected aura. I'll take you to the Mu family. Mu Qingran laughed bitterly. His lightly shut eyes were filled with despair. Master, Milk Tea turned to Yun Luofeng and said, I'll take care of this. I'll bring the Mu family back. Just wait here for us. Yun Luofeng nodded slightly. If there's anything, remember to call me through spiritual transmission. Milk Tea's words were also the Rat Queen's thoughts. She was already very grateful that Yun Luofeng had released them and allowed them to rescue their own kind. Moreover, this was the Rat Clan's matter. If they could complete it themselves, they wouldn't need Yun Luofeng's help. Thank you. The Rat Queen looked at Yun Luofeng gratefully and said. At first, Mu Qingran's heart had been filled with hope when he heard Milk Tea's words. As long as those two didn't follow him, he had plenty of ways to deal with the gold-seeking rats. He might even be able to make this gold-seeking rat, which was a venerable spiritualist, into his son's medicine. However, as soon as the Rat Empress opened her mouth, his plan was instantly ruined. His face was ashen. What did it mean to have two gold-seeking mice that were venerable spiritualists? Even the Mu family only had two venerable spiritualists. Most importantly, he dared not guarantee that there would be venerable spiritualists among the rats. No matter how much he loved his son, he was not willing to risk the entire Mu family. Let's go. After Milk Tea gave the order, she eagerly ran to Meng Meng's side and said, Meng Meng, don't worry, I will definitely rescue your clansmen. Chapter 780. Bo. Meng Meng moved closer to Milk Tea and kissed it on the cheek. At that moment, Milk Tea felt as if 100 flowers were blooming around her, and she felt dizzy. It turned out that being kissed by the woman you loved was such a wonderful feeling. No wonder his master always liked to kiss Yun Xiao. Your pet is really interesting. The corner of Yishima's mouth twitched as he turned to Yun Luofeng and said. What shocked him even more was that she actually had the ability to make the gold-seeking mouse break through to the venerable realm. This was not something that could be done by consuming medicinal herbs. Someone from the Yi family? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and smiled. Ever since she came to the Wuhui continent, she had heard of the Yi family countless times. However, she did not know how powerful the Yi family was. When Yishima heard this, he rubbed his nose and said, I'm just someone who was expelled from the Yi family. Since Yi Jingchen had been kicked out of the Yi family, he and Yi Qi were no longer considered members of the Yi family. However, Yishima laughed heartily. If you encounter any trouble in the Wuhui continent, I can still help you solve it? One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Yun Luofeng said slowly. Yishima laughed out loud. How is this unaccountably solicitous? It's my fortune to be able to protect the beauty. I wonder if the beauty can be protected by me? Inside the divine grimoire, little Mo, who was weeding the medicinal field, was stunned when he heard the voice coming from outside the space. This man actually teased his master in front of Yun Xiao? He was too bold. Sure enough, when Yishima said this, a cold aura enveloped the room, causing the entire room to be filled with a creepy aura. It's enough for me to protect my wife myself. Yun Xiao had unknowingly walked in front of Yun Luofeng and fiercely pulled her into his embrace, as if he was declaring his ownership. Yun Luofeng smiled and allowed Yun Xiao to do as she pleased. This man always behaved like a loyal dog in front of her. Only when facing others would he display his domineering aura to the fullest. Idiot! Fire glanced at Yishima. You don't even know how to strike up a conversation. Yishima looked embarrassed. It's all because of you. Fire understood what Yishima meant by that. The person he was looking for was this woman. He just wanted to find an excuse to get close to her. But what kind of excuse did he come up with? In the eyes of others, they would even think of him as a lecherous, shameless, and vulgar lecher. Watch me. Fire glanced at Yishima and slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng. An innocent smile blossomed on her face. Elder sister, my brother and I are lost. Can you take us in? If she had a tail behind her, she would definitely be able to see Fire wagging its tail and begging for mercy. If it wasn't for the few words that Fire had said to expose her true nature, perhaps Yun Luofeng would have thought that she was just an innocent little girl. Compared to Yun Luofeng, Yishima was already dumbfounded. This little girl wagging her tail and begging for pity, was she really that tyrannical and willful Fire? Little Mo, is this the girl you sensed earlier? Yun Luofeng lowered his eyes and asked. Little Mo's voice came from within his soul. That's right, it's her. Yun Luofeng's eyes darkened slightly. Since she had already come knocking on her door, it meant that this little girl had sensed that the divine grimoire of medicine was in her body. However, she didn't understand why this little girl didn't go straight to the point and reveal her origins. Chapter 781. You are from the Yi family, do you still need me to take you in? Yun Luofeng came back to his senses and asked with a smile that was not a smile. Fire was startled. He suddenly pushed Yishima to the side and said pitifully, I don't know him, we are not on the same path. Sister, I'm lost, please take me in. Yishima was completely dumbfounded. He had been abandoned just like that? He had brought her to find the person she was looking for. But in the end, this girl had turned her back on him on the spot, and even said that she didn't know him? Yishima was very sad. He clutched his chest and pretended to be in pain as he looked at Fire. Fire, you're too heartless, I've been hurt so deeply by you. Fire curled his lips. Don't randomly recognize people, I don't even know you. Hurry back to your Yi city. Don't come and ruin Big Sister's plan to take me in. Yishima pouted, feeling wronged. Fire. Fire turned her head and no longer looked at Yishima. She blinked her bright eyes and looked at Yun Luofeng. Elder sister, I really don't know this guy. My family is no longer here, leaving me alone to wander around. If you don't take me in, I'll have nowhere to go. I might starve to death on the streets. Can you bear to do that? Yes. Facing Fire's pitiful eyes, the smile on Yun Luofeng's face deepened as he softly said those two words. This little girl had such a deep connection with the divine grimoire space. How could she be in such dire straits? Therefore, Yun Luofeng's words were merciless. Also, didn't you just say that he's your brother? Fire blinked his eyes. That's because he lied to me. That's right, he's a liar. He saw that I was cute and tricked me into being his sister. Actually, I have nothing to do with him. Yishima's heart was even more hurt. He looked at Fire with a wronged expression. His eyes were filled with tears, as if they were filled with tears. He had good intentions, but in the end this girl actually called him a liar? In order to strike up a conversation, she was indeed willing to do anything. She could even find such a lame reason. You come with me. Yun Luofeng grabbed Fire's small hand and pulled her into the room. Yishima wanted to follow her in. However, when he reached the door slammed against him and almost broke his nose. This girl is the person Fire is looking for, so Fire won't be in any danger. After Yishima thought it through, he stretched and said, In that case, I'll go back to my room to rest first. I won't care about them. Although Fire was only 8 or 9 years old, he was actually very mature and would not suffer any losses. Furthermore, he did not think that Yun Luofeng would harm Fire. Even he himself didn't understand. It was clearly the first time they met, but he had a good impression of these two people. Even though Yun Xiao had initially used her aura to scare him, he still hadn't gotten angry. Not long after, Yishima would understand that the reason why he had feelings for them was because it was fated. Inside the room, Fire timidly looked at Yun Xiao, who was hugging Yun Luofeng. For some reason, she felt a little afraid of Yun Xiao. Perhaps it was because this man's aura was too strong. So strong that she didn't dare to look at him directly. Yun Luofeng sat on Yun Xiao's lap and raised his eyebrows as he looked at the fire in the room. We don't need to beat around the bush. Tell me, is your purpose for coming here to find me? Fire was startled. She knew that her lie had been seen through, so she stopped acting cute. Instead, she cleared her throat and asked, You know. Chapter 782. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and asked, What do you think? Fire became silent. After a long while, she raised her head and looked at Yun Luofeng. Actually, I don't know much about the specifics. I only know that I am waiting for the person who possesses the divine grimoire's space and follow her. After saying this, she raised her head and stared straight at Yun Luofeng. And you are the one I'm waiting for. Give me a reason to keep you. Yun Luofeng lazily looked at Yun Zhao's chest, his evil eyes looking at Fire who was standing in front of him. For example, what do you know? Fire held his cheek in his hand and thought for a moment, then said, I know how to kill. And I can also set fire. Killing? Arson. This could indeed be considered a skill. Alright, you can stay. The corner of Yun Luofeng's mouth curled up. However, even if you have an inextricable relationship with the medical temple, I still can't completely trust you unless… She paused, the smile on her face deepening. Unless you make a contract with me. As soon as the word contract fell, Fire's body suddenly trembled. He raised his head in shock and looked at Yun Luofeng without blinking. You actually know. She actually knew her identity. I'll give you two choices. Leave the contract behind or don't make a contract with me. Leave now. Yun Luofeng's eyes were filled with evil intent as he said without changing his expression. Fire took a small breath and said, All right. I'll make a contract with you. Hua. In that instant, a burst of fiery red light emerged from Fire's body, and that fiery red light enveloped Yun Luofeng's body. She passed through the layers of red light and walked in front of Yun Luofeng, slowly closing her eyes. At the same time, Yun Luofeng had already forced out a drop of blood from his fingertip and entered Fire's forehead. In that instant, Fire's body trembled slightly, but quickly regained its calmness. The moment the contract was completed, Fire's body disappeared into thin air, and the entire room returned to its previous tranquility. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng looked at Yun Xiao and said, I know you have many questions. If you want to ask, I can answer them. Yun Zhao's arm reached out from behind and wrapped around Yun Luofeng's waist. Her chin gently rubbed against the young girl's head as her raspy voice rang out. I won't ask. He trusted her, so he would not question her about anything. This kind of trust was innate. Yun Luofeng's heart warmed. This man always believed in her. With this, what other regrets did she have in this life? You're tired. Go rest first. Yun Xiao picked up Yun Luofeng's body and carried him to the large bed. Divine Grimoire space. Under the azure sky, Fire and Xiao Emo were staring at each other, neither of them willing to give in. Yun Luofeng had just entered the space when he saw the surging atmosphere between the two of them. The two of them had been glaring at each other, but when they saw Yun Luofeng, they didn't want to fall behind and rushed over. Master, this guy wants to take over my position the moment he arrives. Xiao Emo pointed at Fire and said angrily, Doesn't she know what it means to come first? Fire said with disdain, I was wondering why Master knew my purpose. So it turns out that this medical god Grimoire has actually given birth to a spirit body after so many years. Chapter 783. Little Mo was so angry that her small face was flushed red as she glared at Fire angrily. Fire. Yun Luofeng looked at the two people who were fighting each other, then turned his gaze to Fire and asked, You still haven't told me where you came from. Fire's expression was somewhat desolate. I was originally a spirit beast that lived in this divine grimoire space, but one day, I was thrown out by this divine grimoire space. He said that he was going to find his host, and told me to wait here for him to bring his host back. At that time, because I was young and didn't understand the rules of survival between humans, I was chased by a group of experts who wanted to force me into a contract. I was injured by them and found a place to hide and recuperate. While I was recuperating, I met a human and took him in as my disciple. Later, in order to make it convenient for me to hide there and recuperate, my disciple built a house at the place where I lived. Today that place is the famous Yi family. Yi family. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin with his finger. In other words, the ancestor of the Yi family was your disciple? Fire nodded. The Yi family has a forbidden area. It is said that anyone who enters will die. That place was just a place that the ancestors of the Yi family helped me build to recuperate. I stayed there for 1,000 years, and then Yi Jingchen accidentally broke into the forbidden area, so I left with him. In fact, the reason why the forbidden area was called a forbidden area was because there were other dangers besides her existence. Even those traps were countless, and their purpose was to prevent others from finding trouble with her. However, when the ancestors of the Yi family made these traps, they had already told Fire all the ways to break them. Therefore, after Yi Jingchen accidentally stepped into the forbidden area, Fire saved him. The premise was that he had to take her away from this place to find the person she was looking for. As for why Fire did not leave on her own, it was because she was afraid that she would be hunted down by a group of experts like before, and would even do anything to obtain it. Therefore she, who was inexperienced, did not dare to leave the forbidden area alone. Oh right. Yun Luofeng seemed to have thought of something and asked, "You mean the divine grimoire space kicked you out of this place? Could it be that the medical temple has its own consciousness?" Fire nodded. "Master, I feel that the current divine grimoire space is different from the one I am familiar with. It seems that its consciousness has disappeared." Unfortunately, she had left the divine grimoire for too long, so she did not know what had happened. Yun Luofeng was not as discouraged as Fire, because she felt that she was getting closer and closer to the secret of the divine medical grimoire. "Fire, what is your original body?" Yun Luofeng slightly narrowed his eyes. She actually couldn't tell what Fire's original body was. Hearing this, Fire's body trembled, and not long after, a fiery red fox lay on the ground. This fox had 8 tails that were as fluffy as cotton. Its eyes had also turned from black to a fiery red, dazzling to the extreme. Fire Spirit Fox? This little girl was actually the legendary 9-tailed fire spiritual fox? But why did the 9-tailed fire spiritual fox only have 8 tails? "Fire, where's your other tail?" Fire's eyes dimmed for a moment. "Back then, when I was being chased by those strong warriors, I died once and only lost a tail." She stroked her fluffy tail, her expression calm. Chapter 784. Fire stood up straight, her body was shrouded in a layer of flames, and in a moment she turned back into the little girl that was carved from jade. Hearing this, Xiao Emo did not argue with her like before. His eyes were filled with sympathy. "Fire, from now on you will follow Master. Master will not let you be bullied by others." Fire was moved in his heart. "Thank you." Yun Luofeng smiled slightly. To her, it was naturally for the best if her 2 subordinates could get along well. "This tree has already grown so big?" Yun Luofeng's eyes swept across the area, and when he saw the tree that he had plucked and planted, his eyes were filled with surprise. The seed could no longer be called a seed, but a small tree. Even though this small tree was still very young, it could not change the fact that it had become a tree. It had taken a lot of medicinal ingredients to raise the tree to such a large size. Not to mention the betrothal gift that Yun Xiao had given her. Even the medicinal ingredients that she had obtained from the Rat Clan had almost all been used up. It seemed that she had to think of a way to get more medicinal ingredients. Otherwise, forget about this small tree. She wouldn't even be able to afford to raise those gold-seeking mice. Just as Yun Luofeng was deep in thought, a gust of wind suddenly blew from the small tree, and the wind flew straight towards the fire. Fire's face was originally filled with astonishment. He did not know why Yun Luofeng valued this small tree so much, but in the next moment, an attractive force came from the small tree, as if there were countless hands pulling her towards the small tree. "Master, save me!" Fire shouted in panic, and anxiously grabbed onto Yun Luofeng's hand. In the strong wind, her red dress fluttered, revealing her snow-white thighs. Yun Luofeng tightly held onto Fire's arm. An evil light flashed past his eyes, and he sternly shouted, "I have used so many medicinal ingredients to feed you, is it not enough? Now you want to eat fire? If you don't stop, I don't mind burning you." Sure enough, after hearing this, the wind suddenly disappeared. The small tree swayed its leaves, as if urging Yun Luofeng to feed it. Fire was so scared that he cried, "Master, what kind of monster is this? Why does it want to eat me?" She had only heard of spirit beasts eating trees, but she had never seen a tree eating spirit beasts. What's more, this tree was actually fed with medicinal herbs. What kind of monster was it? "It's fine, it won't eat you. It just wants to eat the spirit energy and life force in your body." Yun Luofeng patted Fire's shoulder and comforted her. But it was clear that her consolation had once again scared the Fire. "Is there a difference? Without spiritual energy, I'm just a useless fox. If my life force is gone, won't I die? Although Fire had lived for 1,000 years, she had come into contact with very few people, so her temperament was inevitably a little like a child's. She grabbed Yun Luofeng's arm, feeling wronged, and hid her body behind her. Little Mo, pick the last few herbs in the space. Tomorrow I will think of a way to get more herbs. Yun Luofeng felt a lot of pressure. Not only did he have to raise the entire rat clan, but he also had to raise a small tree that could eat as much as all the gold-seeking rats. Fortunately, the small tree needed to rest for 10 days to half a month after it was full, so she had enough time to search for medicinal herbs. The small tree seemed to understand Yun Luofeng's words, and its leaves swayed happily, like a puppy that had gotten its food. Master, I'll go out with you. Fire looked at the small tree vigilantly, and tightly held onto Yun Luofeng's arm. I don't want to stay in this place. Chapter 785. I've already warned it. It won't have any more ideas about you. I don't care. Fire curled her lips. If you want me to stay with it, then I won't have a good life. I need to be on guard against its sneak attacks at all times. In that case, it would be safer to stay with Master. When Yun Luofeng saw Fire's pitiful look, his heart softened and he agreed. I can let you follow me, but you can't call me Master, and you can't expose your identity as a spiritual beast. On the continent, Master was what spiritual beasts called their contractors. For example, Milk Tea and the other rats all called Yun Luofeng their master. The people in the army called her young mistress or master. The difference in one word meant the difference between heaven and earth. If others knew that she had a young spiritual beast in her hands, she would never be able to live in peace in the future. Everyone knew that spiritual beasts were divided into adulthood and childhood. For example, Fire, who always looked like an 8 or 9-year-old spiritual beast, meant that she had transformed into a human during her childhood. Youth transformation. This proved that this spiritual beast was extremely talented. It was no wonder that so many people wanted to capture Fire back then. For the sake of his own safety, he could not let Fire's identity leak out. I understand. Fire blinked his eyes and said obediently. If Yishima saw this scene, his jaw would definitely drop. When did this willful little girl become so obedient? Perhaps she was only willing to obey in front of Yun Luofeng. In the inn. In the simple and elegant room, Yishima was just about to sleep when he heard the door being kicked open with a bang. He thought that some enemy had come to seek revenge. He was so shocked that he jumped up and instantly pulled out the sword beside the bed. However, when he looked over, he saw Fire walking in with a calm expression. Fire. Yishima's heart was finally at ease. How many times have I told you, the door is for opening, not kicking? Fire curled his lips. I want to sleep, you go and make a bed on the floor. The corner of Yishima's mouth twitched. Fire, I think it's better if we get 2 rooms. Fire stopped in his tracks. He ignored Yishima and crawled into his blanket. Yishima wanted to say something, but he saw that the little girl had already closed her eyes, so he could only sigh helplessly. He took a blanket and made a bed on the ground. When his voice gradually rose, Fire, who originally had his eyes closed, finally opened them and tightly held onto the sheet in his hands. She was afraid. It was because he was afraid that he didn't dare to come to Qin City alone. It was also because of fear that she slept in the same room with Yishima. Whenever she thought of how she was humiliated by those people, her fear would spread again. Even if Yishima wasn't as powerful as her, she still felt that it would be safer to have one more person. Fire released her tail. She gently caressed the fluffy foxtail, and then placed her finger on the broken tail. A look of sadness flashed through her lowered eyes. She lied to Yun Luofeng. Although a 9-tailed fox's tail represented a life. However, her foxtail did not break because she lost her life. Instead, it was being chopped off bit by those humans. That's right, it was a little. They didn't cut off its tail all at once. They only cut off a little bit every day from top to bottom, until the entire tail was cut off. Even so, she gritted her teeth and endured it. She would rather die than submit to those humans. Chapter 786. Fortunately, I've finally found the person with the divine book of medicine. Fire put down his tail and murmured softly. After finding the person with the divine book of medicine, she would no longer be bullied by others. That was why she did not dare to step into the world for so many years. The next day. Early morning. As soon as Yun Luofeng opened the door, she saw Yishima on fire standing at the door. She raised her eyebrows slightly and asked, "It's time to go?" Yishima coughed dryly. "By the way, we can be considered to know each other now, but I still don't know your names." Yun Luofeng frowned. As for Yishima, other than knowing that she was from the Yi family, she did not know anything else. Therefore, after a moment of silence, she said, "Feng Luo Yun." After Feng Luo Yun, it was Yun Luofeng. Fire blinked and looked at Yun Luofeng with a puzzled gaze. Obviously, he did not understand why she had made up a fake name. However, she did not see through Yun Luofeng and stood quietly at the side. "What about this young master?" Yishima turned to Yun Xiao and asked. "Xiao Yun." Yun Xiao's expression was cold and expressionless. After hearing these two words, Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly. Because he had read the name backwards, did he also follow suit? Yishima laughed and turned his gaze to Yun Luofeng again. He raised his hand and was about to pat her shoulder. However, before his hand could land, Yun Xiao had already pulled Yun Luofeng into his arms and avoided his hand. Yishima touched his nose awkwardly and said, "You too, since we were able to meet, it can be considered a kind of fate. My name is Yishima. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Yi." Yun Luofeng smiled. "Then I will respectfully accept Big Brother Yi." Yishima did not give Yun Luofeng a bad feeling. Instead, his straightforward and generous aura made her feel very comfortable. However, she had always been cautious. In this dangerous continent, she was not willing to reveal her name. Yun Xiao still had a cold look on her face and ignored Yishima's words. It was already extremely difficult for him to say two words, let alone call Yishima Big Brother. Apart from Yun Luofeng, no one could make him have an extra expression. "Haha," Yishima laughed out loud. "Sister Feng, when we reach Kargalik, I'll be the host. I'll bring you guys to eat, drink and have fun. Fire, let's go." "Little Xiamo, aren't you looking for the person you're looking for?" Fire frowned and asked. Yishima slapped himself on the forehead. "How could I forget about this? It's just that foster father wants me to look for someone. But I really don't know where to look. It would be fine if there was a portrait, but there's nothing here." "You are looking for someone?" Yun Luofeng asked curiously. Yishima nodded. "I'm looking for my brother, but I've never seen him before, so I can't find him. Let's not talk about this for now. Sister Feng, young Master Xiao, I'll bring you to Kargalik as guests. As for the matter of finding them, I'll send someone to investigate." Yishima was very distressed. Looking for someone in the limitless continent was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Unless the other party came to him on his own? But was that even possible? He did not think that his luck was that good. Chapter 787. Kargalik. It was not far from Qin City. It only took half a day's journey to get there. At this moment, in a private room of an elegant restaurant in Kargalik, Yiqi had her head lowered. She did not look too good and was biting her chopsticks angrily. Sitting in front of her was a woman in her 20s. She was extremely beautiful and delicate, which made it easy for others to want to protect her. "Chi-Chi," the woman pursed her lips slightly and said in a weak voice, "Are you still angry at your brother?" Yi-Chi sighed and put down her chopsticks. "I don't know why he hates me so much. Ever since I was young, I've always wanted to follow behind him, and I've never done anything that crossed the line. Therefore, I don't understand why he hates me so much." She looked very depressed. She did not even have any desire to eat the delicacies on the table. "Roar, tell me, what should I do to make Big Brother not hate me so much?" Yiqi bit her lips and looked at Shueror pitifully. "This." Shueror was about to speak when she suddenly looked out of the window and said in surprise, Isn't that Mr. Yi?" Yiqi instantly stood up from her seat. Her originally gloomy face became as bright as a spring flower, and there was a charming smile on her face. "Big Brother is back?" Then Yiqi quickly rushed out of the private room. Her speed was so fast that it left everyone speechless. In the lobby of the restaurant, Yishima was introducing the customs of Kargalik to Yun Luofeng and the others while praising the restaurant. However, at this moment, a delicate figure quickly flew down from upstairs and only stopped when she was in front of him. "Yiqi?" Yishima was stunned. He frowned and looked at the woman who had come down from upstairs. Then he looked at Schwerer, who was with her. His already gloomy face became even uglier. Why are you guys here? The man's questioning tone stunned Yiqi. Rower and I were eating here. I didn't expect you guys to be here too. Yiqi looked around and saw fire standing next to Yishima. She immediately became angry. Big brother, are you still with this little girl? Yiqi, don't be rude. Yishima's expression turned serious as he shouted. These are all my friends. Her name is Fire. And the other two are Sister Feng and young Master Xiao. During this period of time, they will be living in the Yi residence. If you are rude to them, don't blame me for not acknowledging you as my sister. Yiqi didn't expect Yishima to scold her for a few outsiders. Her eyes reddened and she felt wronged. Compared to feeling wronged, there was more anger. Chi-Chi. Schwerer hurriedly tugged at Yiqi's sleeve and reminded her softly, since Master Yi is back, don't make him angry anymore. After saying this, she slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao and spoke gently. Miss Feng, young Master Xiao, Chi-Chi has been spoiled rotten. That's why she's a little rude. I hope that the two of you will not take it to heart. Although she was speaking up for Yiqi, her words had already revealed that Yiqi had a bad temper and was spoiled. Not to mention Yun Luofeng, even Yishima, who had a one-track mind, could tell this. Only Yiqi did not understand the underlying meaning. You don't have to defend me. I don't think I did anything wrong. Chapter 788. Yiqi, shut up. Yishima glared at her and said coldly, do you know why I don't like you? I didn't know why I was like this before. But I understand now. You're too stupid. Yiqi froze on the spot as if she had been struck by lightning. I like smart women, not stupid women like you. Yishima had a good temper outside. But he couldn't control himself every time he was with Yiqi. Chi-Chi. Schwerer tugged at Yiqi. You should apologize. They are your brother's friends. You can't be rude in front of them. To show her good manners, Schwerer faced Yun Luofeng and the rest again. Chi-Chi really didn't do it on purpose. Can you guys forgive her? As she said this, she glanced at Yun Xiao from time to time. Initially, she thought that Yishima was the most handsome man in the world. However, she didn't expect that there would be such a handsome man. If Yiqi and Yishima's relationship returned to normal, perhaps she could use Yiqi to get close to this man. Schwerer blushed as she thought about it and rubbed her handkerchief in embarrassment. Boom! Just as she was fantasizing about the future, all of a sudden, the man's aura surged out incomparably cold. Before she could react, she felt a force ruthlessly striking her chest. Rower! Yiqi hurried to Schwerer and asked anxiously, are you alright? Big brother, how could your guest hit my friend? After checking Schwerer's body, Yiqi raised her head and questioned her. Yishima looked at Yun Xiao in confusion. Although he didn't like Schwerer, he wouldn't hit her for no reason. Therefore, he couldn't understand why Yun Xiao would suddenly hit her. Yun Xiao said coldly, she blushed just now. Oh. Yishima was stunned. Blushed? What did Schwerer blush have to do with you? Yun Xiao continued. She blushed when she looked at me. Yishima wasn't someone who didn't understand. After hearing Yun Xiao's words, he immediately understood what had happened. If you see a man blush, it proves that you have feelings for this man. However, just as Yishima was about to speak, Yun Xiao's deep voice was heard again. It's fine that she's blushing, but she's blushing in front of me. I find her an eyesore. In other words, if Schwerer had only blushed secretly, he might not have bothered with her. However, this woman had run in front of him and was an eyesore. How could he not make a move? Schwerer climbed up from the ground and bit her lips. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. Big brother Yi, this is my fault. I was born to be infatuated and like to look at good-looking men. This young master is so good-looking that I couldn't help but look at him a few more times, but I don't have any other thoughts about him. Her expression was very innocent, as if she had been wronged. At this time, the other guests also put down the chopsticks in their hands and pointed at the change in the hall. Big brother, Yiqi said angrily. Rower has already said that she doesn't have any feelings for him. Your friend hurt Rower, do you need to apologize? Yishimo raised his eyebrows and said coldly, I don't care if she has feelings for young Master Xiao or not. It's a fact that she blushed. She's still a virgin, So isn't it too obscene for her to stare at a man she doesn't know? Moreover, young Master Shao already has a wife. Even if Shui Roer has any improper thoughts, you must stop her. Chapter 789. He was naturally protective of his own people. Since Yun Luofeng had addressed him as Big Brother Yi, he would treat him like a younger sister. How could he allow others to cause trouble for him? Shui Roer's face turned even paler. Her frail body was extremely pitiful. Sister Feng, young Master Shao, let's go. Yishima gave Shui Roer a warning look. When he retracted his gaze, he glanced at Yi Qi. Yi Qi, on account that you're my younger sister, I'll give you a piece of advice. You need to keep your eyes open when making friends. Otherwise, you'll still be counting money for someone else when you're being sold. Big brother. Yi Qi stomped her foot angrily. I won't allow you to say that to Roer. Unfortunately, Yishima did not even look at her. He walked straight to the private room on the second floor. Yi Qi wanted to chase after him to explain but was stopped by Shui Roer. She shook her head and said helplessly, Chi-Chi, you don't have to say anything else. Can't you tell? Big brother Yi has been bewitched. He won't listen to you at all. Yi Qi was stunned. She turned around and looked at Shui Roer. Roa, what do you mean? What do you mean by my big brother has been bewitched? Shui Roer smiled bitterly. Not only does he have a misunderstanding about you, but he also has a deeper misunderstanding about me. However, do you think he would have such a big misunderstanding if no one was around? At this point, Shui Roer paused. She lowered her gaze and hid the sinister look in her eyes. According to my understanding, the two ladies beside him must have said something that caused him to have a misunderstanding. Yi Qi frowned. Roer, what should I do to get rid of Big Brother's ill feelings towards me? It's simple. A cold look flashed across Shui Roer's eyes. When she raised her head, she regained her gentle demeanor. You just have to make them disappear. Disappear? That's impossible. At first, Shui Roer deliberately lowered her voice and said that sentence at a volume that only two people could hear. Who knew that Yi Qi would not be able to control herself and scream when she heard that? Shui Roer's expression immediately changed. She hurriedly whispered, Chi-Chi, lower your voice. I'm doing this for your own good. I just don't want to see Big Brother Yi misunderstand you. It's a pity that I'm not strong enough. Otherwise, even if I have to risk offending Big Brother Yi and the Yi clan, I'll kill those people so that you won't have to suffer any more misunderstandings. Her words were very sincere, and Yi Qi's face, which had changed drastically, gradually eased up, and her eyes showed that she was touched. Roa, I know that no matter what you do it for me. However, they are Big Brother's guests. If anything happens to them, Big Brother will never forgive me. I can't do this. Shui Roer sighed. It's my fault for not considering this point. Chi-Chi, you are more thoughtful. I won't be so lost in the future. Although she said that, Shui Roer was cursing Yi Qi's ancestors in her heart. This idiot actually didn't take the bait this time. He had thought that he could use this idiot to destroy that woman. But who would have thought that she was actually unwilling to do it? In that case, if she wanted to get that cold man, she would have to put in some effort. Roer, Yi Qi lowered her eyebrows and said dejectedly, Big Brother already hates me so much. I'm just trying to find a way to restore our relationship. I don't want it to worsen. Chapter 790. Chi-Chi. Forget it, let's go. Foster father and foster mother should be back soon. Yi Qi raised her delicate eyebrows, and a smile once again appeared on her lovely face. In this life, apart from her eldest brother, the only people she respected were her godfather and mother. If not for them, she might have been lost. However, she heard that her godfather had gone out to look for her godmother's biological son. She wondered if they had found him after so many days. On the second floor, in a luxurious private room, Yishima returned the menu to the waiter and turned to face Yun Luofeng and the rest. Younger sister Feng, I haven't asked you yet. Is there anything important that you're here for? Yun Luofeng was stunned. Their goal was to find Yun Zhao's mother. Otherwise, they would not have come all the way to the Wuhui continent. We're looking for someone. After some thought, Yun Luofeng revealed her goal. However, she did not tell Yishima who she was looking for. Haha. Yishima laughed heartily. What a coincidence that we both have someone we're looking for. Younger sister Feng, you can tell me who you're looking for. I can ask the Yi family for help. There's no need for that. Yun Luofeng shook his head. By the way, is that your sister downstairs? It seems like you don't like her. Speaking of this, Yi Shima felt a headache coming on. He furrowed his handsome eyebrows and said, Actually, when Godfather first adopted her, my relationship with her wasn't so bad. Later on, I gradually realized that she was a little stupid. Perhaps it was because of this that I didn't like her very much. Look at her, what kind of friends do you think she has? First, she's the daughter of a bandit leader. That bandit leader even used her name to act like a tyrant. You can see what kind of person Schwerer is now. Yi Shima's tone was getting more and more intense. If Yi Qi was here, Yun Luofeng believed that he would not be able to control himself and give her a good beating. Compared to a stupid person like her, I prefer a smart woman like you, younger sister Feng. Yi Shima winked at Yun Luofeng, and the smile on his face was very handsome. At this moment, a cold gaze was directed at him, making him feel as if there were needles on his back. He coughed dryly twice in discomfort. Just kidding, just kidding. God knows at that moment he really felt as if a knife was pressed against his neck. It was as if his head would fall to the ground in the next second. Idiot! Fire glanced at Yi Shima and said mockingly, You flirted with another man's woman in front of him. You should be thanking the heavens that he didn't kill you. The corner of Yi Shima's mouth twitched slightly. This little girl would feel uncomfortable if she didn't insult him for a day? Brother Yi, Yun Luofeng thought for a moment, then asked, Are there any large-scale auctions in Kargalik? Auction? Yi Shima was stunned and shook his head. There are no auctions in Kargalik. Sister Feng, why are you asking about the purpose of the auction? Actually, it's not anything important. It's just that I have a few medicinal herbs with special uses, and I plan to exchange them for ordinary medicinal herbs. That's why I'm asking about the auction. If the elixirs were to be auctioned at the auction and they could only be auctioned using medicinal herbs, not only would they have food for the gold-seeking mice, but they would also be able to provide nourishment for the small tree. Chapter 791. Of course, with Yun Luofeng's wealth, he could buy all the medicinal herbs in the medicine stores. However, the medicinal herbs in the medicine stores were usually too young. The value of the medicinal herbs grown from these herbs could not compare to those that were a few hundred years old. However, few people would sell medicinal herbs that were a few hundred years old. Even in a medicinal herb shop, there were only a few stocks of treasures. There aren't any large-scale auctions, but my godfather manages a medicine store in Kargalik. Not only can you buy and sell medicinal herbs in this store, but you can also exchange your medicinal herbs for medicinal herbs of the same value. Yun Luofeng's eyes lit up. That's a good idea. Brother Yi, bring me to the medicine store later. Okay. Yi Shima nodded and said, Since my sister has a request as her big brother, I can't just ignore it. After dinner, I'll take you to the medicinal ingredient store immediately. The medicine store arrived at the trading center of Kargalik. This place was more luxurious than other places. There was an endless stream of people. However, they were all in a hurry and did not stop for any unimportant people. Sister Feng, we're here. Yi Shima stopped and turned to look at Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao. In front of him was a mighty and majestic trading firm. Above the trading firm, the words Yi Clan Medicine Shop were emitting a scalding light. Although Yi Jingchen had left the Yi family, his surname was Yi after all. Hence, the medicine store still used the words Yi family. Yun Luofeng raised his head slightly. Let's go in. Okay. Yi Shima smiled. Sister, you can take whatever you like from the medicine store. You don't have to be polite with me. Yun Luofeng smiled disapprovingly, but he still replied, Okay. Although the Yi medicine store was huge, even the gold-seeking rats could not afford the medicinal herbs inside. What she wanted was more medicinal herbs. Sister, your man doesn't seem to like talking. Yi Shima glanced at Yun Xiao and asked. Yun Luofeng turned to look at Yun Xiao and curled his lips. He's a little shy. Shy? Yi Shima rolled his eyes. How could this guy be shy? His cold expression clearly showed that he did not care about anyone else. It was as if aside from Yun Luofeng, no one else was worthy of speaking to him. However, Yi Shima couldn't bring himself to be angry at this cold-faced man. Even he himself did not know why this was the case. Yishima saw Yichi with Shueroer as soon as he stepped into the pharmacy. He frowned again. Why is it that I can see her no matter where I go? His words were vague, and no one knew if he was talking about Yichi or Shueroer. Big brother? Yichi also saw Yishima at this time. She was stunned for a moment, then quickly walked forward. She bit her lips and said, Big brother, you're here? What are you doing here? Yishima's eyes turned cold as he asked coldly. Hearing his cold voice, Yichi's heart slightly trembled. She lowered her head and said, Roa recently defeated a doctor as her master. I promised her that I would give her a medicinal herb, so Not everyone can take the herbs from the Yi family. Yishima stared at Shueroer. She wants these herbs? Sure. Use medicinal herbs of equivalent value to exchange for it or buy it with money. Chapter 792. Big brother. Yichi widened her eyes in disbelief and said in a trembling voice, Roa is my friend. Don't you think you're being too heartless? Heartless? Yishima sneered when he heard that. I don't like Shueroer because I don't want her to get my family's medicinal herbs. What can you do about it? His words were arrogant and willful. I don't like her. Even if I have to destroy these medicinal herbs, I won't let them fall into her hands. Chi. Shueroer saw that the siblings were about to quarrel again. She quickly pulled Yichi back and said gently, Don't quarrel with big brother Yi. It's my fault. I shouldn't have asked you to give me medicinal herbs for free. So I'll go back and sell off my assets. I might be able to gather enough money to buy one medicinal herb. Yichi was furious. To her, why did Big Brother have to pick on Roa, who was kind and weak? Big Brother, although you're in charge of the Yi family's business, it's Godfather's business. Roa doesn't have the right to get the medicinal herbs from the medicine shop, but do they? Yichi pointed at Yun Luofeng and the rest and said angrily, We don't know where these people are from. You want to give them the medicinal herbs from the business? How can you face Godfather and Godmother if you do that? Yishima's eyes were burning with anger. Yichi, since I'm in charge of the business, I can give them to whoever I want. You, on the other hand, can't even get a single medicinal herb without my permission. I'd like to see how you're going to give them to her. Yichi's face turned pale. She knew that Yishima was telling the truth. Godfather had handed over all the management of Kargalik to her. In Kargalik, he had no right to speak at all. Even if she gave a medicinal herb from the business to Shueroer, she did not have the right to do so. I'm sorry, Big Brother Yi. It's my fault. I shouldn't have asked Chi to give me medicinal herbs. Shueroer cried pitifully. I couldn't afford the medicinal herbs and it wasn't easy for me to become a disciple of a doctor. I wanted to thank my master with a medicinal herb. I didn't think that much at all. Don't blame Chi, blame me. Many people had already stopped in the store. They looked at Yishima with blame in their eyes. Clearly, they were blaming him for bullying such a weak woman. The Yi family was very powerful. Yi Jingchen wasn't weak either. But the law does not punish the masses. That was why those people had the guts to point fingers at the unforeseen event before them. Big Brother Yi, you did well. At that moment, Yun Luofeng's voice rang in Yishima's ears. What did you say? Yichi's expression changed and she wanted to step forward. But before she could reach Yun Luofeng's side, she sensed the cold aura emanating from Yun Zhao's body. She was so shocked that she took a few steps back. Shueroer was also stunned as tears rolled down her cheeks once again. She softly said, I'm sorry. Her voice once again made Yichi angry. She looked at Yun Luofeng angrily. You're just my brother's guest. You can't interfere in our business. Aren't you going too far? Yichi gritted her teeth and said, That's right, she liked Yichi, but she wouldn't give up on her friends for love. Roa was already so pitiful, but Yun Luofeng had stabbed her in the back. How could she tolerate this? Chapter 793. Yun Luofeng glanced at her and said plainly, Am I wrong? What did Brother Yi do wrong? Not only is he the manager of the business, but he is also a member of the Yi family. What's wrong with him not wanting his medicinal herbs to be taken by others? Humph. Yichi sneered and snorted. Didn't you ask Brother Yi to bring you here to get medicinal herbs for free? Don't make yourself sound so righteous. Who doesn't know what you're thinking? Yun Luofeng's body leaned against Yun Zhao's chest and he smiled lazily. I don't know where you heard the news that I want to obtain medicinal ingredients from the trading firm for free. Didn't Brother Yi tell you that I'm here to exchange my items for medicinal herbs of equivalent value? Yiqi was stunned. She had thought that Yun Luofeng had the same background as Shuero Heir. She didn't expect that Yun Luofeng also had medicinal herbs. In that case, there was nothing else she could say. Yishima looked at Yun Luofeng and suppressed the gratitude in his heart. He knew that Yun Luofeng wasn't the kind of person who liked to stand out. She had said all this for his sake. She was afraid that the world would misunderstand the Yi family business. This fella didn't say anything and kept all her thoughts in her heart. However, her every action warmed his heart. Shuero Heir restrained the viciousness in her eyes and looked at Yun Luofeng pitifully. So Chi has misunderstood. I apologize to you on her behalf. However, what kind of medicinal herbs do you want? Can we watch from the side? Didn't Yiqi jump out because of her? In the end, she apologized to Yun Luofeng on Yiqi's behalf. However, Yiqi didn't understand what she was implying. She really thought that Shuero Heir was doing it for her own good. Yun Luofeng looked at Yishima, who had an ugly expression on his face. With such a stupid sister, his days were not going to be easy. Looks like Miss Shui doesn't believe me, Yishima sneered and said mockingly. I, Yishima, have always been frank. Since I said that I wouldn't give medicinal herbs, I definitely won't. As a manager, I must be fair and just. Furthermore, what has the Yi family's matters got to do with you? What right do you have to watch? Shuero Heir's face turned pale. I just. Enough! Yishima shouted. You're not welcome in my territory. Leave now, or I'll get someone to throw you out. Big brother. Yiqi, who was initially feeling guilty for misunderstanding Yun Luofeng, immediately exploded upon hearing this. Ro Heir is my friend. I hope you won't always be rude to her. Since you don't want to see us, we'll beat you up immediately. After saying this, Yiqi pulled Shuero Heir out of the store. Outside the door on the bustling street, Yiqi stopped in her tracks. She could no longer hold back her tears. Chi, do you really think that woman has medicinal ingredients? Shuero Heir's eyes flickered as she asked. Yiqi was stunned. What do you mean? Shuero Heir bit her lips. I feel that Brother Yi will definitely secretly give her the medicinal ingredients when you aren't paying attention. As for what she said just now, it's just her side of the story. I don't believe that she has medicinal herbs. Are you saying that they're lying to me? Big brother is still cooperating with her? Yiqi was really easy to deceive. She was immediately fooled by this sentence. She was full of anger, and her whole person became very angry. She had felt guilty for a moment. She never thought that they were colluding to lie to her. They were doing it for the Yi family's medicinal ingredients. Chapter 794. Chi, I feel that with them here, your Yi residents will not have a peaceful day. Why don't you write a letter and call your parents back? Yiqi had recovered from her initial anger. She shook her head and said, No, my adoptive father and mother have something to do outside. They can't come back. She knew what was important and what was not. It was not worth it to send her godparents back to Kargalik for such a small matter. Chi, do you know where your parents are? Shuero Heir blinked and asked. Why are you asking this? Yiqi furrowed her brows as she looked at Shuero. Shuero Heir smiled gently. Aren't they looking for someone? I just want to ask for their exact location. Maybe my relatives are there and I can ask them for help. The innocent Yiqi didn't suspect anything and told her the name of a place. However, she didn't notice a flash of coldness in Shuero's eyes. Yishima did not stay in the hall with Yun Luofeng for long. Instead, he went to the second floor. Apart from Yishima, only dignitaries could go to the second floor. However, he had brought Yun Luofeng and the others to the second floor. Young master, you're here? After seeing Yishima, the old man hurriedly greeted him and asked respectfully. Yishima nodded. Elder Qin, be careful in the future. Don't let Yiqi bring those shady people here. Also, this is my new sister, and the other one is her man. He did not introduce Fire because he knew that Fire did not like to come into contact with people. Old Qin respectfully said, May I know what request the two of you have for coming here? There's no harm in saying it. Yun Luofeng thought for a moment. Let's go in and talk. All right. Old Qin made a welcoming gesture. Please. When she entered the room, Yun Xiao glanced at Fire with a cold gaze, then looked in the direction where Yi Qi and the other two had disappeared. Fire immediately understood what he meant. I still have something to do, so I won't be going in. Yun Luofeng was a little surprised, but she did not restrict Fire's freedom. She said softly, "Come back and find me after you're done." Understood. Fire received the order and quickly rushed downstairs. In Kargalik, she actually had the guts to leave Yun Luofeng. After all, Kargalik was Yi Jingqian's territory. It made her feel safer. Yun Xiao retracted his gaze. His expression was as cold as before, as if nothing had happened at all. "Sister, come to me, your big brother. I won't take your money. You can choose whatever herbs you like in this shop. You don't have to save money for me. Just treat it as a gift from me." Ishima laughed out loud. His voice was bold and clear, but old Qin could not help but twitch when he heard it. When did the young master become so generous? She could choose any medicinal herbs in the trading firm? One had to know that the young master was usually very stingy. Even Miss Yi Qi was reluctant to give her medicinal herbs. Therefore, old Qin was very curious about the background of these two people. "You just promised me in the hall that you wouldn't give me any medicinal herbs. What? Are you going back on your word so quickly?" Yun Luofeng asked playfully with a smile on his face. Yishima chuckled. "When did I become a man who keeps his promise? Since I am in charge of the trading firm, I naturally have the right to gift it to others. You don't have to care about the others. As her big brother, I won't let my sister suffer any losses." Chapter 795. Yun Luofeng smiled. "I'm afraid you won't have enough medicinal herbs even if you empty out your business." Yishima was stunned. "Then how many medicinal herbs do you need?" Yun Luofeng glanced at Yishima. "Medicinal herbs older than 500 years, the more the better." "Medicinal herbs older than 500 years, the more the better?" Yishima's eyes widened in shock. His face was filled with astonishment. "Sister, your request is indeed very difficult. My business has a total of 10 medicinal herbs older than 500 years, and 3 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs. But you said the more the better. I don't know how many medicinal herbs you need." Yun Luofeng's fingers tapped the table lightly. A light flashed across her eyes. "I have Foundation Elixir and Spirit Gathering Elixir. How many medicinal herbs can I exchange for these two?" Foundation Elixir and Spirit Gathering Elixir? Yishima and old Qin were stunned. They could guess the effects of these two medicinal herbs just from their names. "If these are not enough, I still have some spiritual herbs. These spiritual herbs can heal injuries and allow patients to recover in a short period of time. As the saying went, fortune comes from danger." Yun Luofeng taking out these items now was indeed a risky move. But this was the only way she could obtain more precious medicinal herbs. Using a spiritual herb cultivated from an ordinary medicinal herb to exchange for medicinal herbs older than 500 years, then planting those 500-year-old medicinal herbs in the divine grimoire space, she could use a very short period of time to increase the strength of the gold-seeking mice clan. Once the gold-seeking mice's strength was increased, they would become her greatest help. Old Qin suppressed his surging emotions. He took a deep breath and asked, "Miss, what is your request?" 500-year-old medicinal herbs can be exchanged for one of the 3 items listed above. If you have a 1,000-year-old medicinal herb, you can exchange for 2 or more items. "All right." Old Qin immediately stood up. "Miss, place the spiritual liquid and medicinal herbs in our business. We will exchange for them for you. At the same time, we will keep your identity a secret. Once these items were made public, it would definitely cause a commotion." That was why he said this. Even if old Qin did not say this, Yun Luofeng would have made this request. "But, may I ask you, where did you get these items from?" Yun Luofeng looked at old Qin, who was standing in front of him, and smiled. "Where do you think I can get these items? I'm just running errands for someone else. It's not convenient for that person to come out, so I'll come in his place." Yun Luofeng had put in a lot of thought into this sentence. She was still worried about old man Qin. Therefore, she had brought up a groundless person. In this way, if others wanted to kill her and steal her belongings, they would have to consider whether there was really a strong person behind her. Sure enough, hearing Yun Luofeng's words, old Qin believed it. "So that's how it is. I'd like to meet this world-renowned expert who could concoct the spirit-gathering liquid and the foundation-building liquid. Unfortunately, with my status, I can't meet this expert. I'll leave the medicinal liquid and herbs behind. If the items are sold successfully, send those herbs to the Yi residence. I'll be staying here for a while. With that, Yun Luofeng took out a pile of bottles and jars from his spatial ring, as well as the lifelike grass. Chapter 796. Yishima was still in a daze as he walked out of the trading firm. He did not expect Yun Luofeng to have such a precious item in his hands. If these items were sold by the Yi family trading firm, it would not be long before the Yi family trading firm's name shook the entire continent. Sister, thank you. Yishima finally recovered from his shock. He turned to Yun Luofeng and said, with the treasures you've taken out, the Yi family trading firm's profits will increase by a generation. Yun Luofeng smiled. We're just taking what we need. Haha. Yishima laughed heartily. Sister Feng, as your elder brother, I am liking your personality more and more. How could he not know that Yun Luofeng had said that because she did not want him to owe her a favor? After all, there were so many trading firms on the main road. But she had chosen the Yi family trading firm. No matter what, he would definitely owe her a favor. Yun Xiao frowned slightly and glanced at Yishima with a cold gaze. That gaze was as sharp as a knife, causing him to feel a chill down his spine. He could not help but shiver. However, Yun Xiao quickly retracted his gaze. When he looked at Yun Luofeng, the coldness in his eyes gradually disappeared and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Yishima rubbed his eyes in surprise. So this cold fellow could also smile? However, all his warmth had been given to one woman, and his smile had only blossomed for one person. At this moment in the alley, Schwerower had just turned the corner and walked in. Suddenly, a fiery red figure descended from the sky and landed in front of her. Schwerower was startled. When she saw the little girl in front of her, she regained her composure and asked coldly, "Why are you blocking my way?" Fire crossed his arms and looked at Schwerower with a smile. Why? Are you not going to continue pretending? Or is it that Yishima and that idiot Yichi are not here so you don't even have the interest to pretend anymore? Schwerower frowned. Little girl, you should go back and find your mother to drink milk. Do you think a little girl like you can subdue me? Don't let me beat you up until you cry. Fire gently raised his chin, his expression arrogant. What a pity, just a little girl like me can make you speechless. You. Schwerower was furious. Just as she was about to speak, a large sack suddenly fell from above her head, covering her entire body. Who told you to spy on people you shouldn't have? Who asked you to pretend to be a pure white lotus? This is fucking disgusting. From now on, every time you appear in front of me, I'll beat you up once. I'll beat you up until you don't dare to show your face anymore. Fire punched and kicked Schwerower, who was on the ground. Her small fists were very powerful, and her eyes were faintly filled with anger. Schwerower, don't think that idiot Yichi can protect you. If you dare to cause trouble for my master, for my sister again, I will burn your entire family down. She had wanted to call him master, but she remembered Yun Luofeng's instructions and changed her mind. After beating up Schwerower again, Fire clapped his hands and left this secluded alley in a carefree and unrestrained manner. After a long while, the woman in the sack finally broke free. Her face was swollen and bruised, and she was beaten beyond recognition. She stared hatefully at the direction Fire left in and gritted her teeth. Just you wait. I will definitely not let you off easy. When Yi Jingchen and Jun Fengling return, it will be the time of your death. Chapter 797. Jun Fengling was very fond of her godson, Yishima. If she knew that her godson was seduced by a woman who approached Yishima for the Yi family's wealth, based on Jun Fengling's protective personality, she would never let them go. In a bustling restaurant, the woman in red sat by the window. She looked worried and frowned in silence. In front of her sat a handsome man dressed in embroidered robes. He looked at the red-dressed female lead tenderly and comforted her. Juner, don't worry. Since we already have Fenger and Shower's portraits, we'll be able to find them very soon. I hope so. The woman in red sighed softly and said with a bitter smile, if I knew that they were the two people we met in the forest of no return, I wouldn't have let them go. Who would have thought that they were using fake names and missed this meeting? The woman in red did not blame them when she said that. After all, it was their first time in the land of no return and it was right to be cautious. She was just blaming herself for not asking more. Otherwise, they would not have missed the meeting. At that moment, a discussion was heard in the restaurant, interrupting June Fingling's thoughts. Did you guys hear something? I heard that something happened in Kargalik. Something happened in Kargalik? June Fengling was stunned for a moment. Her red phoenix eyes turned to the person who was discussing. Her handsome brows furrowed even tighter and her expression did not look good. Could it be that someone had caused trouble for Emma while she and brother Yi were away? Kargalik? Isn't that the territory of the Yi family's eldest son, Yi Jingchen? Although Yi Jingchen was expelled from the Yi family, he still has the surname Yi. Who would have the guts to cause trouble for them? A drinking buddy at the same table looked curiously at the person who had just exposed the news and asked in confusion. You don't know about this. The informant laughed. Indeed, no one would dare to cause trouble in Kargalik. However, don't forget that Kargalik has a young and vigorous Sir Yishima. My niece is from Kargalik. She told me personally that Yishima was seduced by a woman, and that woman wanted to empty the Yi family's business. Hearing this, the surrounding people were all astonished. Is this news true? It's absolutely true. I think the woman's surname is Feng, and she has a little girl in red with her. These two girls are quite ambitious. For the sake of Kargalik's wealth, they didn't hesitate to seduce Mr. Yishima. TSK, the most despicable person is truly invincible. How could young Master Yi fall for such a slut? Since your niece is in Kargalik, what other gossip could she have? This. The man was silent for a while, then said helplessly, my niece also told me that the woman who seduced Mr. Yi also drove a wedge between Mr. Yi and Miss Yi Chi. She even said that she wanted to enter the Yi family no matter what. Once she entered the Yi family, she would definitely kick Yi Chi out. My niece couldn't stand it and wanted to stand up for her. She even beat her up. Everyone sighed. They had never seen such a cheap woman before. Who does she think she is? Even if Miss Yi Chi was Yi Jingchen's adopted daughter, she was still a member of the Yi family. How could she be so shameless as to kick her out? Wasn't she overestimating herself? Chapter 798. June Fingling's face changed when she heard their voices. Seems like Kargalik has undergone a huge change while we were away. Yi Jingchen was silent for a moment before he asked, do you believe these rumors? June Fengling shook her head. I believe Emo. It's not that easy for others to take advantage of him. Otherwise, we wouldn't be at ease to hand over these businesses to him. Yi Jingchen laughed. His woman was naturally intelligent. How could she be deceived by these rumors? However, June Fengling slowly stood up and scoffed. I still have to go back to Kargalik. I want to know who dares to spread rumors about the Yi family. Yi Jingchen's lips curled into a gentle smile. Let's go back to the Yi family first and settle this matter before we continue to look for Xiao. June Fengling was more protective of her own. Moreover, Yun Xiao had not been by her side all these years. It was always Emor who accompanied her. She had long regarded Emor as her own son. Therefore, she would not allow any rumors to hurt him. Kargalik. Ever since Yun Luofeng entrusted the elixir and other items to the Yi family business, it immediately caused an earthquake in Kargalik. In this mainland that lacked elixirs, one could only imagine the efficacy of those elixirs. As a result, the entire Yi family business was overcrowded. From morning till night, there was not a single empty space. In the past, when people met, the first thing they asked was, have you eaten today? Now it had become, have you gone to the Yi family business today? Originally, the elixir and other items only caused a stir in Kargalik. Not long after, experts from other places also arrived, causing the supply of those items to fall short of the demand. Therefore, Old Qin had no choice but to increase the exchange requirement. That was how the Yi family business temporarily did not fall into chaos. Yi residence. In an exquisite boudoir, Yi Chi sat in front of her dressing table in a daze. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. She was overjoyed and turned around. Big brother, you're finally. Or why is it you? When she saw the woman who appeared at the door, Yi Chi was stunned for a moment and her face became dejected again. It had already been so many days, but Big Brother still didn't pay attention to her. Could it be that he would never look at her again in this lifetime? Thinking of this, Yiqi's heart ached. She said dejectedly, I thought Big Brother was looking for me. I didn't expect it to be you. Shueroer walked over to Yiqi with a gentle smile in her eyes. Chi-Chi, something happened these past few days, causing me to be unable to find you. Are you angry at me? Yiqi shook her head and looked at Shueroer. However, she was stunned when she saw the scars on Shueroer's face. Ro, what's going on? How did you get hurt? Shueroer's eyes darkened. It's a long story. When I was talking to my master, the little girl beside Lady Feng accidentally hurt us. She came out and beat me up. She even warned me to stay away from the Yi residence. She also said that she would beat me up every time she saw me. So, I can only come to find you after she leaves the Yi residence. What? Yiqi flew into a rage and immediately jumped up. Her face was filled with anger. That stupid girl, how dare she be so arrogant? Roar, why didn't you fight back? From Yiqi's point of view, Fire was just a little girl. She was definitely no match for Shueroer. Chapter 799. Shueroer was injured because she did not fight with her. Hearing this, Shueroer's face was filled with helplessness. No matter what, she is still a child. As the saying goes, it is the fault of the father if the child is not taught well. She is mischievous and willful because her parents did not teach her well. It is not her fault. How can I fight with a child? Her words were very gentle. It was hard to imagine that there was a sinister heart hidden under her gentle face. Yiqi became even more furious and immediately wanted to find trouble with Fire. She is too lawless. If I do not teach her a lesson, she might still treat the Yi family as her own home. Chi-Chi. Shueroer hurriedly pulled Yiqi back. She won't admit it even if you look for her. If that's the case, your relationship with Brother Yi will worsen. I don't want to see that happen. Compared to your happiness, what's the big deal if I suffer a little? Yiqi stopped in her tracks and sighed heavily. In this life, to have a friend like Shueroer who would consider everything for her, what regrets did she have? She really did not know why Big Brother looked down on her. Chi-Chi, you can't blame her for this. She beat me up because of me. Shueroer lowered her eyes and said in a gentle tone. Yiqi frowned. What do you mean? She was clearly too arrogant, so why do you still want to take all the blame? Chi-Chi. Shueroer bit her thin lips and her eyes were slightly misty. I was being a busybody. Because my master is very skilled in medicine, I asked her if she could cure your mother's infertility. My master said that if she gave him a bottle of spirit-gathering liquid, he would diagnose Madame Yi for free. Yiqi was dumbfounded like a thunderclap in her head. She was overwhelmed with a strong sense of surprise. When she came back to her senses, she placed her hands on Shueroer's shoulders excitedly, and her voice trembled slightly. Are you saying that your master can cure my adoptive mother's body? Shueroer nodded affirmatively. As long as I give her a bottle of spirit-gathering liquid, he will diagnose her. Moreover, I am very confident in my master. Unfortunately, these words were heard by that little girl. She waited for my master to leave before coming out to find trouble with me. Yiqi was confused, and her face was full of confusion. What does this have to do with that girl? Why did she hit you for this? Shueroer lowered her head again. I didn't want to tell you about this, but I didn't want you to be kept in the dark. That girl wants the Yi residence's wealth and power. Therefore, he had the idea of hitting Big Brother Yi. If Madame Yi gives birth to another child, it will pose a threat to Brother Ye's position. Hence, she came out to warn me. Shueroer originally wanted to frame Yun Luofeng, but Yiqi knew that Yun Luofeng already had a man. That was why she placed this matter on Fire's head. That's impossible. Yiqi's face was a little pale. She shook her head. That little girl is only 8 or 9 years old. How could an 8 or 9-year-old child, whose mind was not yet mature, have such a scheming mind? Furthermore, the age difference between her and Big Brother is too big. A sinister glint flashed across Shueroer's eyes, but it disappeared in a flash. Chi-Chi, you must understand that Miss Feng's mind is not ordinary. Maybe she was the one who instructed this girl to seduce Big Brother Yi, and her target was the Yi family. Chapter 800. In Yiqi's heart, Yishima was her sore spot. She would never allow anyone to set their eyes on him. Rower, go back and wait for me. I'll go look for Big Brother now and tell him the truth. Even if she had to risk falling out with Yishima this time, she had to reveal the true colors of those people in front of him. Chi-Chi, it's useless. Schweroer laughed bitterly. Big Brother, you won't believe you. What you're doing is useless. What should I do then? Let those people lie to Big Brother? Yichi clenched her fists tightly. She looked a little anxious. Schweroer's eyes flickered and she said in a deep voice, I have an idea. What is it? Yichi was stunned. She lifted her head to look at Schweroer and asked anxiously, What idea do you have? Schweroer smiled gently. My master will return to the Yi residence soon. As long as he can get his hands on the spirit-gathering liquid, he will treat your mother's condition. Once your mother has fully recovered, Big Brother Yi will definitely look at you in a different light. By then, he will believe whatever you say. Yichi clenched her fists tighter. Are you saying that we still have to let those people stay by Big Brother's side? This is the only way we can do it. Schweroer's words made Yichi's body go limp. She knew that this was indeed the only option she had. Otherwise, based on Big Brother's attitude toward her, he would never believe her. Ro, when is your master coming? He left Kargalik a few days ago. Now, he's on his way. Schweroer smiled gently. No one could imagine that such a gentle and kind woman would have such a wild ambition now. Whenever she thought of Yun Zhao's handsome and cold face, she would fall into a trance. She secretly made up her mind to get this man. Yichi did not have to wait for long before Yishima and the rest returned. At the same time, Schweroer's master arrived at the Yi residence. When she heard the servant's report, she was elated and said hurriedly, Ro, your master is here. I'll go with you to welcome him. By the way, how confident is your master in curing my adoptive parents? Schweroer replied in a serious tone. My mentor once treated a similar patient and he even succeeded. So, even if he's not 100% confident, he's at least 80% confident. Roer. Yichi held Schweroer's hand and said gratefully, If you succeed, you'll be our family's benefactor. I'll never forget your kindness. Schweroer lowered her head slightly, so Yichi didn't notice the gloomy look on her face. Her master had indeed treated the same illness, but it was not a success but a failure. However, it was impossible for her to tell Yichi the truth. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to trick Yichi into giving her the spirit-gathering liquid. As for the treatment after that. Anyway, she didn't say that it would definitely succeed, did she? The spirit-gathering medicinal liquid was merely a consultation fee, not a treatment fee. When the time came, he could just come up with an excuse. Although Yi Jingchen and his wife were protective, they were also open-minded people. They definitely wouldn't punish them just because their master couldn't treat them. Chi-Chi, let's go. Schweroer returned to her senses and lifted her head. She smiled at Yichi again and said, For your sake, I won't let those people succeed. A good woman like Madame Yi shouldn't be without a son. Yichi didn't think much of it. She nodded and walked out of the room with Schweroer. Chapter 801. Outside the door, the old man stood with his hands behind his back. He seemed to be a little impatient from waiting. His arrogant brows were slightly furrowed and his expression did not look too good. A moment later, Yichi and Schweroer rushed over. When Yichi saw the old man outside the door, she suppressed her surging emotions and slowly walked up to him. The old man in front of her had a sage-like demeanor, and the demeanor of a powerful cultivator. Yichi trusted him without a doubt. Even so, Yichi still asked, Can you really cure my adoptive mother's illness? The old man frowned slightly and said coldly, It seems like you don't believe in my abilities. If you don't believe me, I can leave now and pretend that I've never been here. However, let me tell you, if Roer had not come to me and begged me, I wouldn't have saved her even if you offered me 1,000 bottles of spirit-gathering liquid, let alone a bottle of it. A capable doctor would naturally have his own pride. If this old man had been polite to her, she might have considered the truth of this matter. However, it was precisely because of this old man's arrogant attitude that she trusted him even more. Senior, you've misunderstood. I was just speaking casually. I'm not doubting you. After all, I've never seen your name on the streets. Yichi smiled charmingly as she spoke politely. Chi-Chi. Schweroer hurriedly tugged at Yichi's sleeve. Her eyes were filled with worry as she said, My master hates it when people doubt his medical skills. It's best if you don't say anything. Indeed, Yi Qi's words had already caused the old man's face to sink and he scoffed coldly. How can people like you know my name? All these years, I've been living in seclusion in the mountains and have had no interest in the rich and powerful. If it wasn't for Rower's medical talent, I wouldn't have accepted her as my disciple. The old man's face was cold and stern, and his tone was filled with righteousness. The powerful aura that he exuded from the inside made Yi Qi's heart finally relax. Senior, don't worry. As long as you save my adoptive mother, the Yi family will agree to any conditions you have. Yi Qi curled her lips slightly. Her adoptive mother's inability to give birth had been a sore point for many years. Furthermore, if not for that, his adoptive parents would not have been expelled from the Yi family. As long as his adoptive mother had a child, the Yi family would once again accept their family. The old man looked at Yi Qi arrogantly. Give me a bottle of spiritual medicine. I can diagnose Madame Ye's illness immediately. Yi Qi was delighted. The Yi family's business is managed by my elder brother, and he has all the spirit-gathering elixir. Senior, please follow me. I'll take you to see my elder brother. This time, if she really helped her godmother, Big Brother would definitely look at her in a different light. Yi Qi turned around and walked into the courtyard with Shui Rower and the old man following behind her. However, when they reached the courtyard, a fiery red figure suddenly descended from the sky and blocked their way. Shui Rower, have you forgotten the warning I gave you? Who allowed you to come to this place? Fire placed his hands on his hips and glared at him. Her jade-like face was filled with anger. Her bright red dress swayed in the breeze, as if it was dyed with blood. It was so red that it was dazzling to the eyes. Shui Rower's small face turned pale and she subconsciously hid behind Yi Qi as she looked at Fire timidly. Stupid girl, this is my house. How dare you be so impudent in my house? How did your parents educate you? Chapter 802. Yi Qi glared at Fire angrily. But just as she finished speaking, Fire's figure suddenly appeared in front of her from a few meters away. With a paw sound, he slapped her face. How my parents educated me has nothing to do with you, but right now, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of Yi Jingchen. Fire slightly raised his chin and said sarcastically. Yi Qi was stunned. She couldn't believe that Fire actually dared to make a move on her in the Yi residence, especially since she hadn't noticed her movements just now. How can you hit someone? Shui Rower's voice was very weak, without the slightest bit of deterrence. Her eyes were filled with a pitiful light, making people want to love her. I know that Miss Feng misunderstands me and thinks that I want to steal her man, but I really don't have any thoughts about that man. Why do you keep trying to cause trouble for me? At the end of her sentence, Shui Rower's voice was filled with grief and indignation. If someone who didn't know the truth heard this, they would think that she had been wronged. Obviously, the old man was the one who didn't know. He sneered, his lips curling into a mocking smile. I really don't know how outstanding that man is, to the point that his woman thinks that my disciple wants to steal him away. Does she really think that her man is loved by everyone and that everyone will like him? I believe that with my disciple's eyes, she can't even compare to that man. Fire glanced at the old man as if she was looking at an idiot. Of course my sister's man is outstanding. Otherwise, your disciple wouldn't have peeked at him. Unfortunately, someone like your disciple is not even comparable to a 10,000th of my sister. Even if my brother-in-law were blind, he would still look down on her. Shui Rower's eyes darkened. She did not think that she could not compare to Yun Luofeng. It was only because Yun Xiao had met Yun Luofeng first that she was unable to get involved. If that man had met her first, the person who would have obtained his infatuation would definitely have been her. Haha. The old man was so angry that he laughed. This old man has lived for so many years, but I have never seen such an arrogant person. Not only is my disciple talented and beautiful, her personality is also excellent. You actually said that she can't compare to that woman? What a joke. It's just that Rower doesn't like your brother-in-law. Otherwise, your brother-in-law would have already belonged to Ro. The old man glanced at Shui Rower, who was standing beside him, and his eyes were filled with pride. The man that my disciple has taken a fancy to will definitely be outstanding. Since she was not interested in him, it meant that the man was not good enough. Also, His voice paused for a moment before it suddenly became extremely sharp. Little girl, you are too rude. I want you to apologize to my disciple immediately. Otherwise, I will not treat Madam Yi. Yi Qi's heart suddenly trembled, and a hint of anxiety flashed across her eyes. Senior, I will definitely make her apologize to Ro. You must save my adoptive mother. With that, she turned to Fire. Her charming face instantly turned cold and shouted, Apologize to Roer now. Fire curled his lips. Even Yi Jingchen doesn't dare to speak to me like that. Who do you think you are? If it was anyone else, hearing Fire's disrespect towards Yi Jingchen, they would definitely suspect her identity. Unfortunately, Yi Qi's eyes were already red with anger. She couldn't even think straight. Chapter 803. As a guest of the Yi residence, you must listen to me. If you don't apologize to Roer, I'll kick you out and make you sleep on the streets. She thought that since she had put it this way, the little girl would definitely be a little afraid. However, to her disappointment, even though she had used threats, the little girl still had a look of indifference on her face. Just as Yi Qi was about to rebuke him, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a few people coming from the backyard. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Big brother, you're finally here. She only had eyes for Yi Shima. As for Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao, they were completely ignored by her. What happened? Yi Shima frowned and asked coldly. Yi Qi glanced at Fire proudly. Isn't it because you have Big Brother backing you up? However, you probably didn't expect that in Big Brother's heart, the most important person will always be his adoptive mother. For the sake of his adoptive mother, he will definitely abandon you. Thinking of this, Yi Qi looked at Yi Shima and said, Big brother, this is Roer's master. He claims that he has a way to cure adoptive mother's infertility. What did you say? Yi Shima's heart skipped a beat. He put his hand on Yi Qi's shoulder excitedly and said, Are you serious? Can he really cure godmother's illness? Yi Qi nodded her head affirmatively. That's right, he has the ability to do so. However, this little girl has humiliated Roer just now, so he's planning to leave in a fit of anger. If you want him to stay, you must make this little girl apologize to Roer. A pair of proud eyes glanced at Fire once again, and a gloating smile appeared on her face. Perhaps she could already see the scene of her big brother forcing her to apologize. The excitement on the man's handsome and tough face slowly disappeared. His hands, which were tightly pressed on Yi Qi's body, were also slowly released. Yi Qi, I can agree to his other requests, but this is the only one that I can't. The smile on Yi Qi's face suddenly froze. She widened her pretty eyes in shock and said in a slightly trembling voice, Big brother, even now you still want to protect her? Even if I have to disregard my adoptive mother? She couldn't believe that the big brother she had always respected was this kind of person. For the sake of a little girl, he didn't even care about his godmother? Say no more. No matter what, I won't agree to it. Yi Shima's eyes turned cold and he remained expressionless. The old man frowned. To him it was easy for a little girl to apologize. He did not expect that Yi Shima would not agree no matter what. Master. Shui Roer quickly pulled on the old man's sleeve and said in a low voice, Don't forget why we're here. She deliberately lowered her voice when she said this, but Yun Luofeng and Yun Zhao's ears were very sensitive. No matter how low she lowered her voice, they could still hear it clearly. Yun Luofeng slightly raised his eyebrows as he lazily leaned against the tree. His evil eyes looked at Shui Roer with a smile that wasn't a smile, and there was a mysterious light in his eyes. As for Yun Xiao, no matter what Shui Roer's motive was, as long as her target wasn't Yun Luofeng, then it had nothing to do with him. He would not waste his time on unnecessary people. This old man is magnanimous and won't bother with a little girl. The old man arrogantly glanced at Fire, then turned his gaze to Yi Shima and said, To be honest, if my disciple hadn't come to beg me, I wouldn't have treated her at all. Now that I've made a move, the treatment fee can't be low. Give me a bottle of spirit-gathering liquid first, then I'll diagnose Madame Ye's illness. Chapter 804. Spirit-gathering liquid? Yi Shima frowned. The spirit-gathering liquid doesn't belong to the Yi family. I can't make the decision to give it to you. You should ask for something else. The old man frowned. Since the Yi family is selling the spirit-gathering liquid, the owner of the spirit-gathering liquid has to rely on the Yi family. It's not a big deal if you ask her to give you a bottle of spirit-gathering liquid. Yishima's brows furrowed even more, and his face turned green. The owner of the spirit-gathering liquid doesn't rely on the Yi family. Our relationship is mutually beneficial. I have no right to ask for anything from her. That's easy. The old man smiled. Tell her that if she doesn't give you a bottle of spirit-gathering liquid, you can announce her identity. I'm sure she won't dare to go against the Yi family. Yishima was a little annoyed. The Yi family has its own rules. We will never divulge the orders of our customers. Are you trying to make me break my promise? The old man's expression did not look too good. Why can't you be more flexible? Is your reputation more important than your godmother's health? Hee. Suddenly Yishima laughed. It was unclear whether he was laughing because he was amused or because he was angry at him. The Yi family has 500-year-old medicinal herbs that can be exchanged for the spirit-gathering liquid. If you can cure my godmother, I'll use my medicinal herbs to exchange for it. The prerequisite was that his godmother's health had to be fully recovered. Yun Luofeng glanced at Yishima with a smirk. If Yishima had asked for it, she would not have rejected him. However, he did not do so. Instead, he chose to use his medicinal herbs to exchange for the spirit-gathering liquid. Perhaps this was the reason why she liked Yishima. Mr. Yi, it's not impossible for me to cure Madame Yi. However, the cost of saving her isn't as simple as a bottle of spirit-gathering liquid. I'll need 10 bottles. 10 bottles of spirit-gathering liquid required 5,500-year-old medicinal herbs. The Yi family could only exchange for 4 bottles of spirit-gathering liquid at the moment. However, Yishima still clenched his teeth and said, "Sure, as long as my godmother gets pregnant successfully, I'll exchange for 100 bottles of spirit-gathering liquid for you, let alone 10 bottles." At worst, he would shamelessly go back to the Yi clan and earn enough medicinal ingredients to exchange for 10 bottles of spirit-gathering liquid for his adoptive mother. In the end, Yishima added, "The condition is that you must cure my godmother's illness first." The old man's face darkened. He had demanded an exorbitant price just now to force Yishima to agree to his previous request. Who would have thought that he would agree immediately? The old man was well aware of his own capabilities. He did not have the ability to treat Jun Fengling at all. At this moment he suddenly wanted to retreat. Unlike Yiqi, Yishima was cunning and not as gullible as Yiqi. It wouldn't be that easy to swindle the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid from him. If not for the fact that he only had 4 500-year-old medicinal herbs with him and was still missing one, he would not have thought of using this method to swindle Yishima. Thinking of this, the old man's eyes turned a few times, and a glint flashed across his eyes. He put his fist to his lips, coughed twice and said, "Good. I agree to treat Madame Yi first. However, as a condition of treating her, I want to add one more condition." Chapter 805. He raised his chin slightly and looked down at the little girl. "Ask this girl to kneel down and apologize to my disciple." Since Yishima loved this little girl so much, he would definitely not agree to his conditions. In that case, he would be able to retreat with a good reason. Sure enough, Yishima's eyes darkened and he said coldly, "I told you I will never agree to this request of yours." The old man raised the corner of his lips. "If you don't agree, then I can only forgive you. Goodbye. Let's go." After saying that, he turned around and was about to leave. "Wait." Yiqi stamped her feet anxiously. "Big brother, so what if you ask this girl to apologize? Is this girl more important to you than my adoptive mother?" Yishima's face turned cold. "Yiqi, shut up. What right do you have to shut me up?" Yiqi turned to fire angrily. "This little girl is so young, but her methods are very clever. Of course, I believe that someone must have instructed her to do this. Otherwise, she wouldn't have seduced you like this." Yishima was stunned. He did not expect Yiqi to think that he and fire were crooked. "Yiqi, what nonsense are you talking about?" He frowned slightly. "Fire, this girl has a special identity. If you want to be rude to her in the end, don't blame me for not warning you." Yiqi saw that Yishima was protecting fire, and she felt sour in her heart. Her identity is quite special. She is the future mistress of the Yi family. "Big brother, I was wrong about you. I didn't expect you to be a pedophile." Yiqi. Yishima was furious. Who said that to you? Yichi laughed mockingly. Why? Did I hit the nail on the head? I'm just reminding you as a sister that this little girl is not a good person. She got close to you for the sake of the entire Kargalic. That's why she destroyed everything, and didn't allow you to diagnose her body. She was afraid that she would steal your position after having a baby, and you still believe in her so deeply. Yichi's voice unconsciously rose and she looked very angry. But what about you? Are you worthy of your adoptive parents by doing this? Yishima clenched his fists tightly. He took a deep breath to suppress his urge to beat Yichi up. Right at this moment, a burst of laughter suddenly came from outside the courtyard. It was exceptionally clear in this quiet courtyard. What did Amur do to me? Tell me about it. I'm also very curious as to how he let me and Brother Yi down. Yichi's body trembled. She slowly turned around and looked at the man and woman who were striding down from the horse. Her eyes reddened and tears of grievance rolled down her cheeks. Godfather, Godmother, you're finally back. Dressed in bright red clothes like a bright red flame, he hurriedly strode in from outside the courtyard. Yun Luofeng was startled. His evil eyes flashed as he murmured, "It's them?" Obviously, she still had a deep impression of the woman who had asked for their names in the forest of no return. However, she did not expect that she was Yishima's adoptive mother. Godmother. Yishima finally relaxed. Didn't you go to look for my brother? Why are you back so soon? June Fengling raised her eyebrows slightly. I heard that something happened in Kargalic, so I rushed back with your godfather. Amor, can you tell me what happened? Then she glanced at Yun Luofeng. The moment she saw the two of them, she was stunned. Chapter 806. Godmother, here's what happened. Yishima looked at Yichi and said, Schwerer fell in love with Miss Feng's man and deliberately asked Yichi to target Miss Feng. She even claimed that Miss Feng instructed fire to seduce me. Then you and Godfather came back? Miss Feng? June Fengling had not recovered from her shock when she heard Yishima's words. Her eyes flashed with surprise. Godmother, let me introduce two people to you. Yishima smiled. These two are my new friends. Her name is Feng Luo Yun and the other is her man, Xiao Yun. June Fengling's gaze gradually shifted from Yishima to Yun Luofeng. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Didn't you say that your name is Lin Ruobai? And you? She turned to Yun Xiao. Isn't your name Yun Mo? Yi Qi, who had wanted to complain, was stunned after hearing June Fengling's words. Her face was full of shock. Godmother knew them? In comparison, Yun Luofeng, who had been exposed on the spot, was not embarrassed at all. She said seriously, Lin Ruobai is my nickname. Oh, is that so? Since your surname is Feng? Why is your nickname Lin? Because my mother's surname is Lin. As far as I know, your mother's name is Bai Ling. June Fengling smiled. That smile was very proud, as if using words to choke Yun Luofeng was something to be proud of. Who told this girl to claim that her name was Lin Ruobai? If she had not given them a fake name, she would not have searched for them for so long. Fortunately, the heavens were watching over her and she finally found them. The smile on Yun Luofeng's face slowly disappeared. His breathing gradually became heavier. You know me? At this moment, Yun Xiao, who had not been paying attention to this dispute, finally turned his face because of the matter involving Yun Luofeng. His cold eyes faintly revealed a cold glint. Under his cold gaze, June Fengling curled her lips into a faint smile and looked straight at Yun Luofeng. I don't know you, I only know Yun Luofeng. She looked heroic. If you're Yun Luofeng, then you're someone I know. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous light flashed through them. Then what is your relationship with her? I'm her mother-in-law. What relationship do you think I have with her? The smile on June Fengling's face deepened. She stared at Yun Luofeng with a pair of half-smiling eyes. Yun Luofeng's face finally froze. She said she was her mother-in-law, which meant she was Yun Zhao's mother? After hearing this, Yun Zhao's expression changed for a moment, but it quickly became paralyzed again. To him the word mother was a distant memory. It had been so long that he had forgotten what she looked like. Yi Qi's face turned from green to white, then from white to green again. She took 2 steps back, bit her lip and said, These two people are the ones foster father and foster mother are looking for? The funny thing was, she actually wanted to chase these two people out of the Yi mansion. She was only an adopted daughter. What right did she have to chase out her adoptive mother's biological son and daughter-in-law? At this moment, Yiqi's state of mind had already undergone a huge change. However, her tightly bitten lip was still pale. Shuero's mind raced. If this man really was Yi Jingchen and his wife's son, then she wanted him even more. As long as she became his woman, she would be the mistress of Kargalik. Even Yiqi and her sister would have to live according to her wishes. At this moment, Shuero had already decided that no matter what, she would become Yun Zhao's wife. Chapter 807. Fuck. At this moment Yishima, who was already dumbfounded, suddenly cursed. Isn't Feng Luo Yun 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 Luo Feng? Xiao Yun Yun is Yun Xiao. I didn't realize this at first. Sister, you've lied to me. At this moment he finally understood why he had such a good impression of these two people he had never met before. So Yun Xiao was his brother. Yi Jingchen was not overwhelmed by the joy of the family reunion. He turned to Yishima and asked, "Can you repeat what happened just now?" Godfather, in short, these people slandered Fire for seducing me under sister-in-law's orders. They even forced Fire to apologize to Shuero. I didn't agree, which caused this dispute. Yi Jingchen's face gradually darkened, and his gaze gradually fell on Yi Qi. Seeing the man's fierce gaze, Yi Qi's heart trembled. Godfather, is what your brother said true? Yi Jingchen interrupted Yi Qi sternly. Yi Qi bit her lips and lowered her head. I'm sorry, Godfather. I didn't know they were brother and sister-in-law. It was because the doctor that Roar brought claimed that he could treat Godmother's body. However, because of Fire's rude words, Senior was unwilling to treat Godmother. I wanted Godmother to be pregnant, so I asked Fire to apologize to Ro. At this moment, the old man saw that the situation was not good and wanted to sneak away. However, before he could take a step forward, Yi Qi had already led the topic to him. Instantly, his expression changed. Yi Jingchen slightly raised his eyebrows, his sharp gaze shot towards the old man like a knife and said coldly, "If you want Fire to apologize to Shueroer, then I want to see if you have the ability to do so." Yi Qi's eyes widened in shock. Didn't Godfather love his godmother like a treasure? She thought that after she said such words, her godfather would definitely think about her godmother's health first. She didn't expect him to be the same as her brother and protect this little girl without caring about anything. Where did this girl come from? Why were they so protective of her? The old man's expression turned cold. If that's the case, then pretend that I was never here. Rower, let's go. He turned around and was about to leave the Yi residence. However, just as he took a step forward, a heroic laughter suddenly rang out from behind him. Did you just say that you can heal my body? Jun Fengling raised her lips slightly and walked slowly to Yi Jingchen's side. She raised her eyebrows and sneered. Yi Qi was overjoyed. Her anxious heart was finally at ease. As long as Godmother wanted to treat him, based on her authority in Kargalik, Godfather would definitely not say anything against her. That's right. The old man gritted his teeth. Even now he still claimed that he could cure Jun Fengling's illness. He would never admit that he was here to deceive others. Jun Fengling raised his handsome eyebrows. Back then, Brother Yi searched everywhere for me and said that he couldn't cure my illness. Now, you claim that you can cure me. So, I just want to ask, what is your name on the mainland? You don't deserve my name. The old man raised his head pretentiously. He was about to say that Jun Fengling did not deserve to know, but he was interrupted by Yi Qi. Mother, his name is Wu Lin. These years, he has been living in seclusion in the mountains. This is why his name isn't as famous as the other doctors. Chapter 808. In an instant, the old man's expression changed and he glared at Yi Qi fiercely. Shueroer's expression did not look too good either. If she had known earlier, she would not have told this idiot her master's name. This idiot really couldn't do anything right, but he was good at spoiling things. Wulin. Jun Fengling laughed. Why have I never heard of such a name in the mainland? May I know who your master is? The old man's face was ashen. He clenched his fists tightly as cold sweat dripped down his back. You've never heard of me. I can only say that you're too ignorant. I dare say that my medical skills are not the best in the world, but I'm definitely second. Is that so? The smile in Jun Fengling's eyes deepened. She slowly walked towards the old man and raised her eyebrows, saying, "Then treat me now. I want to see how good you are." The old man gritted his teeth. "I won't take back what I said. If that girl doesn't apologize, I won't do anything." Hua! Just as the old man finished speaking, an ice-cold longsword was suddenly pressed against his neck, causing his body to suddenly stiffen. He looked up blankly and saw the woman's valiant and formidable demeanor. She was dressed in red, like the wind and fire, domineering and enchanting. "Either you treat me or you choose to die. There's no way fire can apologize." The old man was completely dumbfounded. On the mainland, doctors had a very respectable status. No matter how powerful a person was, he or she would have to be polite to a famous doctor. However, he did not expect that June Fengling, this vicious woman, would be so overbearing that she would threaten him with a sword. The old man swallowed hard, his heart trembling. How could he treat June Fengling's physical condition? Or do you not know how to treat it at all? June Fengling narrowed her eyes. "You came here to cheat and cheat." The old man's eyelids twitched a few times. What nonsense are you talking about? You know very well whether I'm spouting nonsense or not." June Fengling exerted force with the sword in his hand and a bloody gash appeared on his neck. "You should know the price of coming to Kargalik to deceive people." Cold sweat trickled down the old man's forehead and his face was pale. Under June Fengling's coercion, he could not hold it in and knelt on the ground with a thud. "Madam Yi, I was wrong. I shouldn't have come to the Yi residence to deceive you. I can't cure your illness at all. Please let me go." The old man kowtowed heavily. Compared to saving his life, he didn't care about any dignity. Nothing was more important than staying alive. Yi Qi was stunned. She stared in disbelief at the old man who was kneeling on the ground. Her pretty face was as pale as a sheet. Had she been deceived by this old thing? And because of this, the conflict between him and his eldest brother became deeper and deeper? At the thought of this, Yi Qi was filled with endless anger. He walked forward and kicked the old man's chest hard. "Old bastard, how dare you lie to me? She even caused me to quarrel with eldest brother and misunderstood second brother and second sister-in-law. It's all your fault, you old thing." Yi Qi's little face was flushed with anger. She kicked harder and harder, wishing that she could stomp this old thing to death. "Remember, it's not so easy to deceive the Yi residents. Besides, I, June Fengling, have always been vengeful. Therefore, I will spread the news of your actions today, so that everyone in the world understands your virtue." Chapter 809. The old man's legs turned to jelly and he fell to the ground. His eyes were glazed over and he was overwhelmed with despair. June Fengling was a member of the Yi family after all. No one would doubt her words. If the world found out about his deceit, there would be no place for him on this mainland. "Get out of here!" June Fengling barked. The old man quickly got up from the ground and ran out of the house. He was afraid that June Fengling would take revenge on him if he stayed any longer. Schwerower stared blankly in the direction where the old man had left. She had yet to recover from the sudden turn of events. "Schwerower, shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Yi Qi shouted angrily. Schwerower suddenly covered her face and cried when she heard Yi Qi's angry voice. "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I trusted my master too much. He told me that he was 80% confident, so I believed him. I really didn't know that he was trying to cheat me of the spirit-gathering liquid." Tears flowed down from the gaps between her fingers. Her body trembled violently. She was very sad. "Chi-Chi, it's all my fault. I almost hurt your family. I'll never be able to see you again." Schwerower was already crying so pitifully. How could Yi Qi bear to blame her? Moreover, she believed Schwerower from the bottom of her heart. She thought that Schwerower had only been deceived by the martial arts world. "Rower, I shouldn't have blamed you just now. You're innocent too. This has nothing to do with you." Yi Qi's expression softened and she comforted her softly. Yun Luofeng could not help but look at Yi Qi when he heard their words. He then looked at Yishima and his lips curled into a smile. As expected, Yishima's face darkened when he saw that Yi Qi believed Schwerower so easily. He scoffed coldly and turned to walk into the backyard. "Miss Xue." June Fengling's eyes lit up and she smiled at the woman who was crying. "Emoer said that you like Xiao Er?" Schwerower panicked and quickly defended herself. Madam, I know that my status is low and my family is ordinary. I'm not worthy of Master Xiao. How would I dare to have any improper thoughts? She only claimed that her family background was ordinary, which was why she knew that she couldn't match up with Yun Xiao. However, she never denied whether or not she had taken a fancy to Yun Xiao. After all, in Schwerower's heart, which mother didn't want her son to be loved by everyone? If she said that she didn't like Yun Xiao, would her mother Jun Fengling still be able to accept her in the future? Oh, Jun Fengling nodded slightly. Fortunately, you do know your place. You know that my Xiao is not someone you can imagine. Schwerower's face instantly turned pale. She bit her lower lip and didn't make a sound. Yiqi couldn't bear to see her like this, but she didn't dare to say anything in front of Jun Fengling. She could only look at Schwerower apologetically. Madam, don't worry. Schwerower raised her head and revealed a desolate smile. I really don't have any thoughts about young Master Xiao. Even if he has many concubines in the future, I won't be one of them. Even if she couldn't obtain Yun Xiao now, she would definitely make things difficult for Yun Luofeng. She would make him understand that as Yi Jingchen's stepson, Yun Xiao couldn't possibly only have one woman. As such, Schwerer couldn't help but glance at Yun Luofeng. Chapter 810. However, the girl didn't seem to hear her. She was talking to the man next to her in a low voice. She didn't know what she said, but the man's cold expression melted instantly. He looked at her affectionately with his eyes that were as dark as the night. Schwerower bit her lips, and a sinister look flashed across her eyes. I'll let you be happy for a while. Since Jun Fengling was his mother, she would love for her son to have countless women and grandchildren. No matter how much they loved each other, they couldn't be a couple for the rest of their lives. However, at this moment, the woman's dissatisfied voice came from above her head. I'm relieved that you think that way. But forget about the concubine. I don't want my son's house to be in chaos. If Jun Fengling had been indifferent to Schwerower in the beginning, it had escalated to the level of dissatisfaction. Schwerower suddenly reacted, and her face turned paler. How could she forget that Jun Fengling was the only woman Yi Jingchen had for so many years? He didn't take a concubine even when Jun Fengling was infertile. But she was stupid enough to say that Yun Xiao would take a concubine in front of Jun Fengling. Wasn't that equivalent to offending her? Madam, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I said the wrong thing. Schwerower was very upset. How could a strong woman like Jun Fengling accept a man having multiple wives? Her views had already transcended the secular world. You didn't mean it? Jun Fengling smiled mockingly. Why do I feel that you're a smart person? How could someone like you not mean it? Forget it. Go away. Don't come to my house and don't interact with my children. Jun Fengling was so impatient that she didn't want to say anything else. Schwerower wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and ran out of the house. Rower. Yiqi stomped her feet and wanted to chase after Schwerower. However, before she could take 2 steps, Jun Fengling's berating voice came from behind. Stop right there. Yiqi turned around aggrievedly. Godmother, why do you all have to target her? Jun Fengling sighed. Chi-Chi, listen to your brother. He won't harm you. The ones who will harm you are those who you think are innocent. Yiqi was stunned. Is adoptive mother referring to Rower? How is this possible? Why would Rower harm her? Go back to your room and think about it. Jun Fengling glanced at Yiqi and retracted her gaze. She turned around and walked towards Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao. Her beautiful face lit up with a smile. Why? Do you two have anything to say to me? Yun Luofeng smiled lazily. I didn't think that you would be Yun Zhao's mother. It looks like we are quite fated. Am I right? Auntie. Why are you still calling me auntie? Jun Fengling pretended to be dissatisfied, but her red phoenix eyes were smiling. Since you're Zhao's fiancé, it's only natural for you to call me mother. Yun Luofeng smiled. Mother. It was only a matter of time before she and Yun Xiao got married, so it wasn't a big deal for her to call her mother early. That was why she didn't reject Jun Fengling's suggestion. Good girl. Jun Fengling beamed when she called her mother. You didn't lose out by calling me mother. After all, I've prepared a gift for you. Then, she took out a jade pendant from her lapel and stuffed it into Yun Luofeng's hand. On the jade pendant, the lifelike word Jun was dazzling, emitting a bright light under the sun. Chapter 8:11. When they saw Jun Fengling take out the jade pendant, Yi Jingchen and Yi Qi were stunned. Their eyes were filled with shock. Even though they did not know the origin of the jade pendant, they knew that Jun Fengling had always treated it as a treasure. Now, she had given it to Yun Luofeng without batting an eye? Normally, she would not even bear to let anyone touch her jade pendant, let alone give it away. This showed how much Yun Luofeng weighed in her heart. This jade pendant has no other use for you. It's just that the material used to make it is rather special. It can block 3 fatal attacks for you. However, it can only be used 3 times. After 3 times, it will become an ordinary jade pendant. Yun Luofeng was stunned. Does this jade pendant have any special meaning for you? Isn't it a little inappropriate for you to give it to me like this? Jun Fengling smiled. This jade pendant was given to me by my father, your maternal grandfather. It has been with me for many years. However, it has no other use for me other than as a souvenir. You, on the other hand, often provoke powerful enemies. If you don't have something to protect yourself with, I won't be able to rest easy. It was obvious that Jun Fengling was well aware of Yun Luofeng's personality. This man had always been the type to make a move at the slightest disagreement. No matter where he went, he would always make enemies. This was why she took out the jade pendant she loved so much. Yun Luofeng was touched. Putting the jade pendant's effects aside, the fact that Jun Fengling had given him a souvenir from her father proved that she saw him as family. Especially since her tone was very indulgent. She did not seem to mind that Yun Luofeng would make enemies. She was only worried about her safety. Jun Fengling smiled at Yun Xiao and asked, "What about you? We haven't seen each other for so many years. Do you have anything to say to me?" Yun Xiao's cold and callous face was slightly moved, but he was still unable to call out the word mother in the end. He thought about it and asked, "Did you arrange a marriage between me and the Ling family?" Hearing this, Jun Fengling furrowed her brows. "I think so. It's been so long I almost forgot." "Where's the token of love?" Yun Xiao's voice was low and hoarse. "I lost it." Jun Fengling curled her lips. "Lost it?" Yun Xiao's face instantly darkened. Just because she lost that token of love, he had to go through so much trouble just to cancel the engagement? What's wrong? People from the Ling family looked for you? He wants to be engaged to you? Jun Fengling raised her eyebrows and asked. Even though Yi Jingchen had an acquaintance in the Roaring Dragon continent and had obtained information about Yun Xiao and Yun Luofeng from that acquaintance, Yi Jingchen did not know much about Yun Xiao and Yun Luofeng. However, the place where the Xiao family was located was not a place that ordinary people could enter. Hence, Jun Fengling knew nothing about what happened in the Xiao family. They wanted to break off the engagement and I agreed. Yun Xiao glanced at Jun Fengling indifferently. But they were certain that even though I agreed verbally, I was unwilling to break off the engagement. So I hid the token of love. What? Upon hearing this, Jun Fengling flew into a rage and said hatefully, "It's not enough for those people to expel you from the Xiao family. He actually came looking for you again and even said that my son was unwilling to break off the engagement with the little girl from the Ling family? Back then, your marriage was decided by those people from the Xiao family. I never thought that the little girl from the Ling family was worthy of you." Yun Xiao's low voice rang out again. "The people from the Xiao family also said that you had been taken away by a mysterious person. That mysterious person was from the Ye family?" Chapter 8:12. Jun Fengling was stunned and shook her head. "The people who took me away weren't from the Yi family. Brother Yi and I only met in the forest of no return." She turned her head and smiled at Yi Jingchen with her phoenix eyes filled with deep affection. "That year, the mysterious man left after taking me away. I even accidentally received news that the Xiao family's woman had thrown you into the forest of no return. So I went there to look for you. Who knew that not only did I not find you, but I was also seriously injured. It was Brother Yi who passed by and saved me and brought me back to the Yi family." Jun Fengling smiled. Her smile was beautiful, so beautiful that it was dazzling. "Xiao I haven't been by your side all these years, but I'm very clear about what happened between you and Feng. I'm very honored to have such an outstanding son and daughter-in-law." She retracted her gaze and held Yun Luofeng and Yun Zhao's hands, then placed them together tightly. "I don't have any other wishes in this life. I just hope that the two of you can support each other for the rest of your lives. Yi Jingchen silently walked to Jun Fengling's side. The corners of his lips curled into a gentle smile. All these years, only he knew how much Jun Fengling had suffered. If it wasn't for the support of the news from the mainland, she might not have been able to hold on. Since you've already given me a greeting gift, I've also prepared a gift for you. Yun Luofeng kept the jade pendant and took out 2 fruits from the space ring with a smile. She handed them to Jun Fengling and Yi Jingchen respectively. These 2 fruits are my greeting gifts for you. Yi Qi was dumbfounded. Her adoptive mother had given her such a precious jade pendant as a greeting gift, but she had only given her 2 fruits to brush her off? How could she be so stingy? Jun Fengling did not mind. She accepted the fruits happily and said, "Isn't there a saying that favors are more important than gifts? The fruits given by my daughter-in-law will definitely be more fragrant than the ones outside." The fruits that Yun Luofeng had taken out were spirit fruits cultivated from the simple red fruit. However, due to some changes in appearance after cultivation, Jun Fengling could not recognize that it was the simple red fruit. She brought the fruit to her lips and took a gentle bite. Instantly, a fragrant juice flowed between her teeth, making her feel extremely comfortable. Boom! Suddenly, Jun Fengling's body trembled, and a powerful surge of spiritual energy burst out of her body, breaking through the bottleneck that was blocking her advancement. Above her head, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was still lingering, as if announcing her successful advancement. What happened? Yi Shima hurriedly ran in from the backyard. The moment he walked in, he saw that his parents and sister were stunned on the spot. A look of confusion flashed across his face. But very quickly he was also stunned. He looked at the spirit qi circling above Jun Fengling's head and asked blankly, "Godmother, you broke through?" Godmother had been stuck at the bottleneck for a few years, and had not shown any signs of breaking through. Why did she suddenly break through now? Jun Fengling was the first to return to her senses. She clearly understood that she had been able to break through because of the fruit that Yun Luofeng had given her. A strange light could not help but appear in her eyes. "Fenger, can you tell me what's going on?" In an instant, everyone's gazes were focused on Yun Luofeng, waiting for her to give an answer. Chapter 8:13. Yun Luofeng shrugged. "Your luck is quite good. You just happened to be at a bottleneck so you could use the spirit fruit to break through." Of course, there was another reason why Jun Fengling could break through. The reason for this was that a few days ago, she suddenly had the idea to water the bottle of holy water that she had obtained from Lin Ruobai's father on the aubergine tree. However, she still did not know what effect the spiritual fruit would have after being watered with holy water. So she took this opportunity to experiment. He did not expect the spiritual fruit to be more useful than before, as it could help venerable spiritualists break through. It was indeed beyond her expectations. Thinking of this, Yun Luofeng couldn't help but look towards Yun Xiao. "These things are useless to me." Yun Xiao saw through Yun Luofeng's thoughts and explained. The cultivation technique that he had learned was rather special. These items that borrowed external forces to break through were of no use to him. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows, but he was not disappointed at all. As long as he became a venerable spiritualist, he would be able to dual cultivate with Yun Xiao. At that time, both of their strengths would increase. "Sister-in-law, I didn't expect you to have such a good thing." Yi Shima looked at Yun Luofeng resentfully. "Why didn't you give me a greeting gift?" Yun Luofeng glanced at Yi Shima. "If you encounter a bottleneck when you break through to become a venerable spiritualist, I can sell you a fruit." The corners of Yi Shima's mouth twitched, and his eyes were filled with resentment. "Sister-in-law, you're biased. You're the one who gave them to my adoptive parents. Why should I have to spend money to buy them?" Yun Luofeng nodded in agreement. "I am indeed very biased, but there is nothing I can do about it. Who asked me to be biased?" Yi Shima was so aggrieved that he was about to cry. His eyes were filled with resentment as if he had been abandoned. "Big brother Yi." Yun Luofeng did not know whether to laugh or cry. She patted Yi Shima's shoulder and smirked. "Forget it, I won't tease you anymore. I'll give you one of these spirit fruits when you become a venerable spirit." Yi Shima finally smiled. Yun Luofeng's guarantee was more important than anything else. Yi Qi also wanted Yun Luofeng's spirit fruit, but when she thought about what she had done to him before, she couldn't bring herself to say it. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and looked at Jun Fengling. I heard that you're infertile? Jun Fengling nodded, sighed and said, the hidden illness from back then has caused me to be unable to have children now, and I've found countless famous doctors to treat it. Because of this, they were chased out of the Yi family. Let me see, Yun Luofeng said after thinking for a while. All right. Jun Fengling knew Yun Luofeng's strength, so she didn't refuse. She smiled. However, you don't have to feel burdened. It's fine even if my body can't be cured. It's just a pity that I can't give Brother Yi a son or daughter. She already had Yun Xiao, so naturally, she did not mind. Therefore, she regretted that she could not leave a trace of Yi Jingchen's bloodline. Do you need to take my pulse? Jun Fengling looked up and stretched out her wrist. I never take the pulse when I treat a patient. To her, she only needed to look at a person to know their illness. Therefore, the first time she saw Jun Fengling, she knew the condition of her body. However, that was only a rough observation. If she wanted to understand more, she would have to observe carefully. After a long time, Yun Luofeng withdrew his gaze. I understand your illness. It's not a big problem. I can treat it. Chapter 8:14. I can treat you. The girl's light voice was like a heavy hammer that hammered into the hearts of everyone present, causing their hearts to tremble. Jun Fengling stared at the girl in a daze, clearly unable to react to her words. Are you telling the truth? Could she really treat her? Yun Luofeng nodded slightly. I'm lacking some herbs. Get someone to bring me those herbs later. From today onwards, I'll start treating your illness. Jun Fengling and Yi Jingchen looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. If she could really get pregnant, the Yi family would no longer have the right to expel them from the family. All right. Yi Jingchen suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, give me the list of herbs you need. I'll send someone to get them right away. She had long heard of Yun Luofeng's medical skills. Hence, since she was certain that she could treat her, she believed that she definitely had the ability to do so. Brother Yi, I'll leave this matter to you. I still have a lot to discuss with Xiao and Feng. Don't disturb us before dinner. She winked at Yi Jingchen before pulling Yun Luofeng's hand and walking towards the backyard. Yun Xiao naturally followed when she saw that Yun Luofeng was being pulled away. Yi Qi. Yi Shimo retracted his gaze from Yun Luofeng and turned to look at the pale-faced Yi Qi. He frowned slightly and said, they're your brother and sister-in-law. You should be more polite to them in the future. Don't be used by others. Yi Qi was stunned. She lowered her head and muttered softly. Roar was also deceived. She's innocent. Even though she said it very softly, Yi Shima still heard her. He laughed coldly and said, I don't care how much trust you have in Shuero. I only know that they're relatives of my godfather and godmother. All these years without them the two of us wouldn't exist. No matter what, I won't let you do anything to hurt my brother and sister-in-law. At this point, he paused for a moment before continuing. If you were someone else, I wouldn't have said a word to you. I'm willing to say so much to you because you're my younger sister. I don't want our family to never have a peaceful day. He had never seen Yun Xiao before, but he knew how much hardship his younger brother had suffered outside. Now that he and his sister-in-law had finally returned, how could he allow someone to continue hurting them? Yi Qi raised her eyebrows. I don't like that Yun Luofeng. Who asked you to scold me for those people? But I like my adoptive father and adoptive mother. For the sake of my adoptive father and mother, I won't do anything to harm them. Don't worry. Yi Shima did not say anything else. He glanced at Yi Qi coldly, turned around and walked toward the backyard. If his sister wasn't so stupid, she might be a good person. Unfortunately, he didn't like her stupidity. Yi Qi lowered her eyebrows slightly. A look of struggle flashed across her eyes, but she finally chose to walk out of the Yi residence's main door. Yi Qi had just walked into a tall and luxurious restaurant when she bumped into a woman in red. The woman's appearance was exceptionally beautiful. Like a red peony, gorgeous and luxurious. Wait a minute. Seeing that Yi Qi was about to pass by, the woman in red suddenly called out and stopped her. Chapter 8:15. You again. Yi Qi frowned slightly and looked at the woman in red impatiently. She asked, why are you always pestering me? This woman had been saying good things about Yun Xiao in front of her ever since she found her a few days ago. However, she already had Yishima in her heart. No matter how good other men were, she would not like them. Miss Yi, I don't have any bad intentions. I'm just telling you what I know. It's said that your second brother, who has been missing for a long time, is a good man who is infatuated with love. If you can get him, he will definitely be devoted to you. So I just want to help you. Sorry, I'm not interested. Yi Qi's face darkened. Don't look for me if you don't have anything else to say. If my godparents hear what you said, they will definitely not let me go. Hearing this, Jinyu raised her eyebrows slightly. It's true that you have no interest in Yun Xiao, but I know who the person in your heart is. Yi Qi's body suddenly froze. She turned around with a cold look in her pretty eyes. What do you mean by that? Jinyu's face was cold and elegant. Don't you understand what I mean? Do you want me to say in public that the person you like is Yishima? However, I heard that Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao have come here. Moreover, the person in your heart is protecting them and going against you. Don't you hate them? She successfully saw Yi Qi's expression change drastically. Then she slowly approached her. So we can cooperate. As long as you're willing. Enough. Yi Qi's body trembled slightly and she shouted angrily. My godparents gave me my life. Do you want me to bite the hand that feeds me? So what if I hate them? I won't do anything to make my godmother sad. Jinyu was stunned. Just as she was about to continue to provoke Yi Qi, the delicate figure had already stepped into the second floor and disappeared from her sight. Looking at the direction in which Yi Qi had left, Jinyu's heart suddenly sank. A cold smile appeared on her gorgeous face. She turned around and wanted to walk out of the restaurant. However, at this moment, a delicate voice sounded from the side. Do you know Yun Luofeng? Jinyu raised her eyebrows. When she turned her eyes reflected a soft and beautiful face. The woman was dressed in white and pretentious. Even though there was a flash of hatred in her eyes, it was still easily captured by Jinyu. You are? Jinyu frowned and asked. Shueroer clenched her fists tightly. I'm Yi Qi's friend, and I have a special relationship with the Yi family. You know Yun Luofeng. Jinyu raised the corner of her lips. She has a grudge against you. That's right. Our hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Shueroer purposely lowered her voice, and her eyes were filled with intense hatred. If someone didn't know what was going on, they would have thought that Shueroer had dug up her ancestors' graves. Tell me about it. Jinyu was very interested. Yun Luofeng hadn't been in the Wuhui continent for long, and he had already made an enemy? Or an irreconcilable enemy? TSK, looks like my master was right. A person like Yun Luofeng is a disaster. There was no one she hadn't provoked before. Shueroer concealed the viciousness in her eyes. She stole my man? Isn't this an irreconcilable hatred? Jinyu was startled. Her lips curled into a sarcastic arc. Your man? Are you talking about Yun Xiao? Chapter 8:16. That's right. Shueroer scoffed. I don't think I'm worse than Yun Luofeng. I'm just weaker because I met Yun Xiao later than her. But I really don't understand why Yun Xiao's mother thinks so highly of her and belittles me. As far as I know, Yun Luofeng came from the Longxiao mainland and his status is even lower than mine. Jinyu's face gradually turned cold. She didn't like to hear these words. What did she mean by she wasn't worse than Yun Luofeng? If Yun Luofeng was bad, why would her master try so hard to marry her? Did she mean that Yun Xiao had bad taste? Did that mean that her master had bad taste too? Jinyu loved Bai Su deeply. How could she allow anyone to say bad things about her? Hence, anger surged in her heart and she sneered. If you want to get Yun Xiao, there's a way. What way? Shueroer's eyes lit up and she asked. A sinister look flashed across Jinyu's eyes. I have a bottle of medicinal liquid here. You just need to spray it on your body, and the person you want to seduce will fall deeply in love with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Jinyu took out a porcelain bottle from her lapel and handed it to Shueroer. I originally wanted to give this medicinal liquid to Yi Qi. In the end, that girl didn't fall for my trick, so I can only give it to you. Shueroer took the medicinal liquid hesitantly and asked, Can this medicinal liquid really make Yun Xiao fall in love with me? She had always been vigilant. Who knew if this medicinal liquid was poisonous? That was why she asked such a question. Jinyu sneered. Only one drop of the medicinal liquid can have such an effect. If you don't believe me, you can find someone else to try. This is all I can help you with." Hearing this, Schwerower put away the medicinal liquid with ease. She looked up at Jinyu and asked hesitantly, "Then why are you helping me?" Jinyu glanced at her. "My master has taken a fancy to Yun Luofeng and naturally wants to separate them. Otherwise, why do you think I'm looking for Yi Qi? That's all I have to say. Whether you're willing to use this medicinal liquid or not is up to you." She was not as patient with Schwerower as she was with Yi Qi. After saying what she needed to say, she left the restaurant without any hesitation. Not long after Jinyu walked out of the restaurant, she turned into an alley. At this moment, a small figure fell from the sky and landed in front of her. "Master." Jinyu knelt on the ground, cupped her fists and said respectfully. Standing in front of her was a little boy of a few years old. He looked very cute, but his face carried a demonic charm and coldness that did not match his age. A pair of black eyes flickered with a cold and gloomy light. "Why did you do that?" Baisu slowly walked towards Jinyu and gently raised her chin, looking down at the woman who was kneeling on the ground. "Don't you know that Yun Xiao is immune to all poisons? Your charm has no effect on him." Jinyu lowered her head. "This subordinate knows, but that little girl is too presumptuous. She actually claimed that she was not worse than Yun Luofeng. If Yun Luofeng was really that bad, Master wouldn't want to marry her. This subordinate just doesn't like it when others question Master's judgment. This is why I made the decision on my own. Please forgive me, Master." In the beginning, Jinyu did not acknowledge Yun Luofeng's excellence. However, she had witnessed his growth over the past year. If not for this, Master would not have wanted to rope her in. Chapter 8:17. Forget it, I can forgive you for this, but you can't make decisions on your own in the future. Baisu raised her hand and helped Jinyu up from the ground. Our plan to make use of the Yi family has been destroyed. Now, I can only recover from my injuries. Yes. Jinyu raised her head and her expression returned to its usual coldness. In the private room of the restaurant, Yi Qi looked at the table full of dishes and had no appetite. She leaned against the back of the chair tiredly and lowered her head. At this moment, the door of the private room was opened. When she saw Schwerower walking in, her eyes suddenly lit up. She stood up and said, "Rower, you're here?" Schwerower smiled gently. Her picturesque eyebrows relaxed and she walked towards Yi Qi. "Chi-Chi, you must have waited for a long time, right? Sorry, I had something to attend to, so I'm late." "It's okay." Yi Qi waved her hand generously. "These dishes are a little cold. I'll get the waiter to heat them up later. By the way, Rower, where did you go just now? Why are there straws on you?" Yi Qi raised her hand and brushed away the straw on Schwerower's back. Her eyes were full of curiosity. At this moment, she did not see the fluster in Schwerower's eyes when she brushed away the straw. I don't know where I got it from." Schwerower calmed down and smiled. "It's getting late. Let's eat first. You should go back after that. Otherwise, Madam Yu will definitely be angry. I don't want to destroy the harmony of your family because of me." Schwerower lowered her head sadly. Her face was full of depression. Her expression seemed to be happy that Yi Qi's family was reunited, but at the same time, she was sad that Yi Qi could no longer be friends with her. Yi Qi originally wanted to question Schwerower if she really wanted to hit on Yun Xiao. However, seeing her like this, she could not say anything. She opened her mouth to comfort Schwerower. However, before she could say anything, a burly man broke through the door and said while panting, "Rower, something happened to your family. What did you say?" Schwerower blinked in confusion and asked, "What happened to my family?" "Rower, your house has been burned down. Your sick mother has also been buried in the sea of fire." The burly man seemed to have used all his strength to say this sentence. Schwerower's vision turned black and her body fell backwards. "Rower!" Yi Qi reacted quickly and held Schwerower's body. Her voice was trembling. "How did this happen? Why would there be a fire in Rower's house for no reason?" Just when Yi Qi's eyes were filled with anxiety, Schwerower, who had her eyes closed, opened her eyes and made eye contact with the burly man. "I don't know what happened either." The muscular man's eyes flickered as he said, "I heard from the neighbors that there's a little girl in red clothes around Rower's house. I'm not sure if she has anything to do with the fire." An 8 or 9-year-old girl dressed in red. Could it be fire? Yiqi did not see the exchange of gazes between the two of them, so when she heard the sturdy man's words, the first thing she thought of was fire. Who asked that little girl to be someone with a criminal record? Chi-Chi. Shueroer grabbed Yiqi's hand tightly as tears flowed from her eyes. I believe in fire. This matter definitely has nothing to do with her. Even though she beat me up fiercely, I don't believe that this girl is so ruthless that she would set a fire and kill someone. It's just that my poor old mother, who was paralyzed in bed, left me just like that. Chapter 8:18. Shueroer covered her lips and sobbed, her eyes brimming with tears. Her words sounded like she was exonerating fire, but in fact she was telling Yiqi that the person who set the fire and killed people was fire. That girl had beaten her up so fiercely back then. What else could she not do? Yiqi was so angry that she almost rushed over to settle the score with fire. However, just as she was about to act, she suddenly remembered Yishima's cold gaze and instantly sobered her up. Roar, let's go to the Yi residence first. I'll ask if she was the one who did this. Besides, you have nowhere to go now, so I'll ask my adoptive mother to let you stay for a few days. Shueroer was stunned. She even forgot to cry. According to Yiqi's personality, after hearing this, shouldn't she immediately kill fire to avenge her? But why did she have to ask about the truth? But no matter what, he could stay in the Yi residence tonight. As long as he stayed there, he would have a chance to get Yun Xiao. Once Yun Xiao fell in love with her, she would have the right to speak in Yi City. Compared to the disputes in the outside world, the Yi residence was happy and harmonious. However, at this moment, a servant walked in from outside and hurriedly reported, Master, Madam, Miss is back. Miss Shui has also come with her. Outside, everyone called Yi Jingchen young master, but the servants in the Yi residence all called him master. Hearing that Shueroer had come to the Yi residence again, Yi Jingchen and his wife's faces did not look too good. I've already said that my family does not welcome that girl. Why is Chi-Chi so disobedient? Jun Fengling frowned. Besides, I told Chi-Chi to stay at home and reflect on her mistakes. Who allowed her to go out? Madam, Miss claimed that Miss Shue's house was caught in a fire, and there is no other place to live now. The servant reported respectfully. Moreover, the young miss said that she brought Miss Shui here because she has something to verify. Jun Fengling's eyes darkened. Let them in. I want to know what they are here to verify. As Jun Fengling's adopted daughter, Yiqi did not need to report to Jun Fengling to see her. However, she had brought Shuerer with her, which was why she was stopped. Yun Xiao remained expressionless in the face of all of this. Her expression was cold as she silently peeled the skin of the grape for Yun Luofeng, before placing the sparkling and translucent flesh by her lips. Ahem. Jun Fengling coughed and glared at Yi Jingchen. Look at how considerate my son is. How warm. Why don't you learn it? Yi Jingchen chuckled and hugged Jun Fengling's shoulder. You should have told me earlier if you wanted me to feed you grapes. When have I not satisfied your request? Jun Fengling slapped Yi Jingchen's hand away and said coquettishly, Do you need me to tell you this? Doing it yourself and needing me to remind you to do it are completely different. If you want me to give you advice, then this matter is meaningless. I think you should ask my son for advice. Yi Jingchen coughed awkwardly. He was already an old man, yet he still wanted to ask a junior for advice on how to please a woman? However, if he could make Jun Fengling smile, it was not impossible for him to ask for advice. However, if the old antiques of the Yi family knew about this, they would probably nag them for a long time. While Yi Jingchen was deep in thought, Yiqi and Shuerer had already walked in. At this moment, Shuerer looked extremely weak. Her face was pale as if she had just suffered a huge blow and would collapse at any time. Chapter 8:19. Chi-Chi. Jun Fengling frowned and asked, You said that you wanted to verify something with us. I don't know what you want to verify. Yiqi looked at the fire who was sitting at the table and eating an apple. Adoptive mother, just now Roar's house was caught in a fire. According to witnesses, they saw the fire appear there. So I wanted to verify where the fire went half an hour ago. Fire took a bite of the apple, looked up at Yiqi and said in a childish voice, You mean I set fire to her house? Yiqi bit her lips. That's not what I meant. I'm just here to ask where you were at that time. Even if you don't mean that, you're still suspecting that I set the fire. Fire sneered and stood up. He threw half of the apple in his hand at Schwerer. Schwerer was caught off guard. With a bang, she was hit by the apple and her forehead turned red. Yichi was stunned. She didn't expect Fire to make a move without saying a word. What's more, there wasn't even a word of explanation. Did you see it clearly? Fire glanced at Schwerer and proudly raised his chin. If I want to hit her, I will hit her. If I want to kill her, I will kill her. I will never deny what I have done. However, you want me to bear the crime of arson. I'm sorry, but I won't take the blame. Yichi fell silent. This girl dared to hit Schwerer in front of them. If she was really the one who set the fire, she wouldn't deny it. Since she didn't admit it, did that mean that she wasn't the one who set the fire? Chi-Chi. Schwerer came back to her senses. She rubbed her aching head and looked at Yichi with tears in her eyes. I told you at the time that she wasn't the one who set the fire. You should believe me and not ask about this. Yichi was obviously standing up for her, but in her mouth it was a busybody. June Fengling's eyes darkened. She had lived for so many years and fought with so many people. How could she not understand the meaning behind Schwerer's words? Since it has been proven that the fire was not set by fire, then there is nothing else. June Fengling turned to look at Schwerer. I know that you have nowhere to go these few days, but unfortunately, I don't have any extra rooms for you in the Yi residence. You should go to the inn to stay. Schwerer's expression changed. The Yi residence was so big, how could there not be extra rooms? June Fengling did not want her to stay at all. Madam. Schwerer hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. Please take me in. I won't stay here for long, just a few more nights. I promise I won't cause trouble for Madam, nor will I spy on young Master Xiao. After she finished kowtowing, she hurriedly knelt in front of Yun Luofeng and said pitifully, Miss Yun, I know you have some misunderstandings about me, but I swear that I really have never had any thoughts about young Master Xiao. I beg you to let me stay for a few days. I am willing to be your maid and serve you. I'll let you be complacent for now. When I successfully obtain Yun Zhao's favor, I'll make you pay the price for today's matter. Schwerer lowered her eyes and a ruthless glint flashed across them. Godmother. Yichi could not bear it and was about to speak up for Schwerer when June Fengling stopped her coldly. Enough. It was my idea not to let you stay. Don't harass my daughter-in-law. If you insist on doing so, don't blame me for being rude. She slammed her palm on the table. In an instant, the table split into two and fell to the ground. Chapter 820. June Fengling's palm was too strong. Schwerer was scared silly by her. Her misty eyes were filled with confusion as she stared blankly at June Fengling, who was dressed in red. Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were natural enemies because they had the same man. Therefore, back then, her mother and grandmother had fought every night for the same man and were even chased out of her father's family. Now, if she didn't know that she had the confidence to become the daughter-in-law of the Yi family, her father's family wouldn't have agreed to let her re-enter the family tree. Therefore, this was the first time she had seen a mother-in-law who protected her daughter-in-law like June Fengling. What made her worried was that the person being protected was not her. Schwerer subconsciously bit her lower lip, her long eyelashes covering the viciousness in her eyes. After a long while, she calmed herself down, raised her pitiful face and said softly, I'm sorry to disturb you. It's hard for people like me to be accepted by others. Don't worry, I won't pester the Yi family anymore. And I won't appear in front of Chi-Chi either. After saying that, Schwerer looked at Yichi one last time, her eyes filled with struggle and reluctance. In the end, she turned around and walked out of the hall. Rower! Yichi hurriedly shouted, her eyes filled with anxiety. However, she knew that her foster mother didn't like Schwerer, so she didn't dare to plead for her. Wait! Suddenly an evil voice rang out, causing Schwerer to stop in her tracks. Fenger! June Fengling looked at Yun Luofeng doubtfully. Do you have something else to say? Mother, I am naturally protective. Since fire is already mine, I will not allow anyone to frame her. Yun Luofeng narrowed her eyes slightly, an evil light flashing in her eyes. So since she has stepped into the Yi residence, she can forget about leaving. Schwerer's body stiffened. She turned to look at Yun Luofeng with a pale face. You? What do you mean by that? I was in the restaurant at that time and Chi-Chi can testify. It was someone else who came to inform me that I found out about what happened to my family. Furthermore, someone who looked like fire appeared beside my house, and it was also seen by others. I have always believed in her. Yiqi nodded and echoed. Roar is telling the truth. I can testify that she didn't know about it in advance. Chi-Chi. Jun Fengling frowned and stopped Yiqi. She looked at Yun Luofeng. Fenger, you did well. Fire could not be wronged for no reason, so I support your actions. Yun Luofeng smirked. Since that's the case, I'll let Shuero Air stay in the Yi residence. I'll fulfill her wish. Before that, I'll send someone to investigate the truth. In other words, Shuero Air was under house arrest in the Yi residence. She would only be released when Yun Luofeng found out who the arsonist was. However, only Shuero knew the truth. She slightly lowered her eyes. I did not wrongly accuse Fire. I only verified it through the witness's description. Maybe that person is a girl who looks similar to Fire. However, since all of you are suspecting me, I will stay. I believe that, madam, you will clear my name and not allow someone to frame me. Jun Fengling's face darkened. Even now this girl was still so shameless. In his words, he actually said that Yun Luofeng was framing her. Chapter 821. Just as Jun Fengling was about to stand up for Yun Luofeng, a cold voice was heard. My wife, even if she framed you, you have no choice but to accept it. The man raised his handsome face. His facial paralysis made him look indifferent as he stared at Shuero coldly. His gaze froze her body, as if countless knives were slicing her once again. His voice was as merciless as ever. Besides, I don't think you have the right to be framed by her. Shuero's face turned paler and paler. Her body swayed a few times and she almost fell to the ground. What made her even angrier was that Yiqi did not speak up for her at such a time. She allowed these people to bully her. Yiqi felt Shuero's pleading gaze and lowered her head in shame. She would fight for Shuero when she faced Yishima. However, she did not have the courage to refute Yi Jingchen and his wife. That was because her adoptive father and mother were the people she respected the most. She had already rebelled against their wishes. How could she continue to support them now? She could only comfort Shuero after this matter was over. Brother Yi. Jun Fengling did not even look at Shuero and turned to Yi Jingchen. Send 2 people to watch over her. I don't want this woman to cause any trouble for the Yi family. Also, lock her up somewhere far away from Shower. Don't let her disturb others here. Obviously, Jun Fengling did not want Shuero to have a chance to get close to Yun Xiao. Even if Yun Xiao did not like her, she would still feel disgusted. Yi Jingchen smiled gently before he barked. Guards, take Shuero away and lock her up. She is not allowed to appear in the main courtyard. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 guards walked in and cupped their fists respectfully. Yes, sir. Roar. Seeing that the 2 guards were holding Shuero, Yiqi hurriedly held her hand and comforted her. Don't worry. If you really didn't frame Huahua on purpose, my adoptive mother will definitely clear your name. I'll let you suffer for a few days. Shuero smiled miserably. She didn't answer Yiqi's question and followed the 2 guards out of the door. At this moment, Yiqi did not notice the sinister glint that flashed across her eyes. Instead, she was still worried about what had happened to her. Chi-Chi, go down and rest. Jun Fengling's voice was no longer as cold as before, but carried a hint of helplessness. If Shuero really wronged Fire, I will not let her off so easily. You should be mentally prepared. Yiqi shuddered and turned to face Jun Fengling. Godmother, if she really did that, I can't forgive her. But I believe her. It's not just because she's my friend, but because her mother died in the Sea of Fire this time. She can't use her mother's life to frame others, can she? Jun Fengling shook her head. She knew that this time they must have misunderstood Fire. However, this misunderstanding was not Roar's original intention, and she was also someone who did not know. The mainland is so big. There will always be people who don't recognize their own family. Jun Fengling's tone gradually became indifferent. Perhaps you will understand in the future. For now, you should go and reflect on your actions these few days. Yes. Yiqi bowed and left. After the 2 of them left, the atmosphere in the hall could no longer return to its previous cheerful and harmonious atmosphere. Chapter 822. Jun Fengling's lips curled into a smile as she turned to look at Yun Luofeng. You 2 must be tired, right? Go back and rest. I'll get the servant girl to wake you up before dinner. As he spoke, Jun Fengling kept winking at Yun Xiao, not forgetting to instruct. Make the baby well. Yun Luofeng's expression was a little awkward. Even though she had shared a bed with Yun Xiao for so many days, nothing had actually happened. Making a baby was obviously impossible. However, Yun Xiao coldly agreed to Jun Fengling's request. Okay. Yun Luofeng's expression darkened. Yun Xiao, who had always been obedient, didn't go along with Yun Luofeng this time. His cold eyes were filled with determination. We'll make a baby very soon. Don't be too fast. It's better to take it slow. Jun Fengling smiled evilly. Yun Xiao was stunned. She looked at Yun Luofeng in confusion as if asking her what Jun Fengling meant. Yun Luofeng's expression darkened. She never thought that Jun Fengling would be so dirty. I won't disturb you anymore. Haha. Jun Fengling looked at Yun Luofeng's darkened expression and couldn't help but be in a good mood. She said, let's go back to our room and rest. However, when she walked to Yun Zhao's side, she paused and the smile on her lips deepened. Son, work hard. Mother is waiting to hold a grandson. After speaking, she walked out of the hall with Yi Jingchen, leaving the extra space for the two of them. Seeing that the hall had become empty, Yun Luofeng took a few steps closer to Yun Xiao and smiled evilly. Do you want to know what your mother meant? Yun Xiao nodded honestly. He really wanted to know. Your mother means. Yun Luofeng's lips moved to Yun Zhao's side. An evil glint flickered in his dark eyes. When you're in bed, she wants you to last a little longer. Yun Xiao looked up at Yun Luofeng and said in a hoarse voice, all these years, no matter how much my power has grown, I've never given up on training my body. What does this have to do with endurance? A strong body will also have a strong endurance. Yun Xiao paused and continued. So you can rest assured. Yun Luofeng smiled. She reached her hand into Yun Zhao's shirt, her fingers slowly brushing past the man's abdominal muscles. Indeed, the first time I saw you, I was attracted by your abs. If Yun Xiao hadn't taken off his clothes, it was hard to imagine that he would have these 8-pack abs. After all, from the outside, one could not see the muscles on his body. In layman's terms, he looked thin when he wore clothes, but he was muscular when he took them off. He had a perfect figure. No, this fellow was a grade higher than the standard figure. Looks like I need to find a way to become a venerable spiritualist as soon as possible. Yun Luofeng withdrew his hand and rubbed his chin as he mumbled to himself. Night fell. Deep into the night. Inside the woodshed, Shueroer stood up from the ground full of dried firewood. She patted the dust off her body and walked towards the door. However, the door was locked by a chain, making it impossible for her to open it from the inside. Her expression darkened, and a vicious light flashed in her eyes like a dagger dipped in poison. Jun Fengling, I didn't think that you'd guard against me to this extent. Once I've bewitched your son, you'll have to accept me even if you don't want to. Who asked your son to love me? Chapter 823. Shueroer sneered in her heart. All these years, Jun Fengling had been separated from her son for many years. Therefore, she felt very guilty towards him and wanted to make it up to him. Otherwise, why would he indulge Yun Luofeng so much? But if I become her daughter-in-law, she can only indulge me like this. Otherwise, how could her son so easily forgive her for abandoning him for so many years? The funny thing was that Shueroer didn't know that Jun Fengling's indulgence towards Yun Luofeng wasn't because of his guilt towards Yun Xiao. She did feel guilty, but she didn't indulge Yun Luofeng because of this. She accepted Yun Luofeng because of Yun Luofeng himself. Otherwise, with Jun Fengling's character, even if he had reluctantly accepted her as a daughter-in-law for the sake of his son, he would not be so protective of her. Just from the fact that Jun Fengling had given the most precious thing to Yun Luofeng, it was clear that she liked this daughter-in-law from the bottom of her heart. Love me, love my dog. But more importantly, it depended on her own charm. Shueroer raised her brows. The coldness in her eyes gradually disappeared and was replaced by a pitiful look. Big brother guards, I want to go out and relieve myself. Can you let me go for a while? At the entrance of the woodshed, the two guards looked at each other in dismay. Shortly after, one of the guards coldly said, Madam has already given the order that you are not allowed to leave the woodshed. If you want to urinate, do it on the spot. Schweroer's eyes flickered and she continued. But there is no chamber pot in this shed. If the two of you are unwilling to let me leave, why don't you give me a chamber pot? The two guards hesitated for a while before saying, All right, wait a moment. Schweroer wasn't capable enough to escape from their hands, so they went to prepare a chamber pot for her. Schweroer's lips curled into a sinister smile as she listened to the sound of footsteps getting further and further away. She then took out the aphrodisiac that Jinyu had given her, and dripped a drop of it on herself. This aphrodisiac was colorless and odorless, so ordinary people would not be able to feel anything. Not long after, the sound of chains being unlocked came from outside. Soon after, the two guards walked in from outside and blocked the entrance like door gods. The chamber pot is for you. The guard was expressionless. He placed the chamber pot on the ground and said coldly, Thank you, big brothers. Schweroer raised her brows and smiled delicately. Her voice was very gentle, like a claw scratching their hearts. The two guards were usually calm people, but when they saw Schweroer's gaze, their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. This was the first time they realized how beautiful Schweroer was. Cough, cough. One of the guards let out 2 dry coughs, trying to calm his racing heart. However, he couldn't help but steal glances at Schweroer from time to time with a bashful expression. Seeing that the aphrodisiac was effective, Schweroer was elated. However, she didn't show it on her face. Big brothers, I'm bored in this woodshed. I want to go out and get some fresh air. Is that okay? I promise I won't leave the Yi residence. This? The two guards looked at each other, and there was a struggle in their eyes. Madam has ordered that you are not allowed to leave. Schweroer immediately raised 2 fingers and swore. I swear that I won't go to the main courtyard and I won't leave the Yi residence. I just want to be alone. Big brothers, please help me. Chapter 824. Her fingers tugged on the sleeve of one of the guards. Her eyes were filled with pleading as she stared at him. At this moment, in the eyes of the 2 guards, Schweroer was a glowing object. Her entire body was filled with light that could move their emotions. How could she refuse their request? You must come back as soon as possible. We will still lock the door here and pretend that you are still in the woodshed. In addition, I will tell you some places that we must pass by during our patrol. You must remember to avoid those places. If the madam finds out, we will all die. Schweroer was ecstatic. She quickly said, Thank you, brothers. I will never forget your kindness. Then she hurriedly walked out of the woodshed and looked around. After making sure that no one was around, she hurriedly walked towards the main courtyard. In the room, the fragrance of incense filled the air. Yun Luofeng, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes and saw Yun Xiao leaving the room. Yun Xiao, where are you going? Yun Xiao stopped in his tracks. The corners of his cold and stiff lips gradually curled into a shallow arc. You ate too little for dinner. Perhaps you don't like the chefs in the Yi residence. So, I am going to prepare supper for you. Years ago, after Yun Luofeng tasted Yun Zhao's cooking in the country of flowing gold, he returned to the country of Long Yuan and asked Yiling to transfer the chefs in his residence over. Who knew that Qing Yan would tell her that the person who sat at the table that day was Yun Xiao? It was then that she learned of Yun Zhao's culinary skills. Okay, I will wait for you to come back. Yun Luofeng smiled. Yun Xiao pushed open the door and walked out. The night was getting quieter and quieter. The night wind blew and only the sound of leaves rustling could be heard. At this moment, Yun Xiao was only thinking about Yun Luofeng's supper. Therefore, he didn't see the woman who was rushing towards him. The woman didn't know if it was intentional or not, but when she saw Yun Xiao walking towards her, she did not dodge. Instead, she ran towards him. Therefore, by the time Yun Xiao realized that the woman was rushing towards him, the woman was already in front of him. It was too late to dodge. Therefore, he made his move without hesitation. Fuck off. The man's voice was cold and emotionless. His aura exploded and the woman's delicate body was sent flying. She fell to the ground in a sorry state. Schweroer never expected Yun Xiao to be so violent despite his good looks. Under normal circumstances, if a beauty like her was about to fall in front of him, shouldn't he be supporting her? But not only did he not help him up, he even attacked him. It was as if she was some kind of germ that would taint her the moment she came into contact with it. At the thought of this, Schweroer crawled up from the ground. With tears in her eyes, she looked at Yun Xiao pitifully. Young Master Xiao, I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I just didn't see you appear. She had a beautiful face, a gentle expression, and tears in her eyes, which made people involuntarily want to protect her. Such a woman should be loved by many men. However, Yun Xiao was not one of those men. Young Master Xiao, actually, I fell in love with you from the first time I saw you, Schweroer said affectionately. I am different from Yun Luofeng. She must have known your identity, that's why she got close to you. As for me, my love for you has no ulterior motives. Even if you are not a member of the Yi family, I will still love you deeply. Chapter 825. Yun Xiao, who was about to leave, heard Schweroer mention Yun Luofeng's name. He immediately stopped in his tracks and turned his cold gaze towards Schweroer. When Schweroer saw him walking towards her, she thought that he had been bewitched by the aphrodisiac. Her heart was filled with joy and her expression became even more gentle. Young Master Xiao, if you are willing to marry me, you will know that I am not inferior to Yun Luofeng. In fact, I am even more outstanding than her. She smiled gently and slowly walked towards Yun Xiao. Every time she took a step closer to Yun Xiao, her heartbeat would increase by a notch. She stared foolishly at that grim face and the feeling of amazement rose involuntarily once again, causing her to fiercely swallow her saliva. If she became Yun Xiao's wife, how blissful would her life be? Young Master Xiao, my legs are a little weak. Can you help me? Schweroer smiled gently and stretched her arm towards Yun Xiao. Her body tilted and fell into the man's embrace. Just as her hand was about to land on Yun Xiao's wrist, a swift and fierce sword light suddenly flashed past. In an instant, before she could even touch Yun Xiao's hand, her hand was severed by the blade light. Ah! A shrill cry rang through the sky, causing the entire Yi residence to tremble. At the same time, Schweroer's body fell heavily to the ground without any support. Fresh blood gushed out from her severed arm and dyed the entire courtyard red. You weren't poisoned by the aphrodisiac? Schweroer's eyes widened and her pale lips trembled slightly. How could this be? She had tried the aphrodisiac that woman had given her several times. She had succeeded every time. Why didn't this man fall into her aphrodisiac? Why did this happen? What's going on? Just as Schweroer was about to faint, an astonished voice rang out from behind. Then Yi Jingchen and his wife led a group of people into the courtyard. A group of guards had also surrounded the entire courtyard. Yun Luofeng quickly walked over to Yun Zhao's side. She glanced at Schweroer, who was lying in a pool of blood, and immediately understood what had happened. Roer! Yiqi also saw Schweroer and cried out in alarm. She hurried over to her side. Roer, your hand. Why is it like this? Due to excessive blood loss, Schweroer's face was pale and her lips trembled as she looked at Yun Xiao. Schweroer! Jun Fengling had already regained her senses and walked towards Schweroer with a sneer. Didn't I tell you not to take a step out of the woodshed? You are not allowed to appear in the main courtyard? Looks like someone disobeyed my orders and let you out. Yi Jingchen understood what Jun Fengling meant, and immediately sent 2 men to bring the 2 guards who were guarding Schweroer. After all, Schweroer's appearance here was definitely related to them. Godmother, Roer has already become like this. Shouldn't we treat her first? Yiqi nervously rubbed the corner of her clothes, and tears almost fell from her eyes. Qi, this has nothing to do. Jun Fengling glanced at Yiqi. If you want to stay here and see how the world progresses, then shut up. Otherwise, I'll have someone send you away immediately. Yiqi was stunned and shut up. She had never dared to disobey Jun Fengling's orders. Jun Fengling could not bear to look at them anymore. She turned to Yun Xiao and said, Xiaoer, tell me what happened. I will definitely seek justice for you and Fenger. Chapter 826. Yun Zhao's expression was as cold as ever. He wanted to seduce me. He even claimed that Fenger was not as good as her. Jun Fengling's face darkened completely. She sneered and her lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Fenger is not as good as you? Schweroer, aren't you overestimating yourself? Do you think that I, Jun Fengling, will accept anyone? You're wrong. I accept Fenger because she's Yun Luofeng. I won't accept anyone else. When those people reported Yun Zhao's news to Yi Jingchen, They also brought Yun Luofeng along. Hence, Jun Fengling already knew about Yun Luofeng's behavior all these years and admired her even more. Yet, Schwerower claimed that Yun Luofeng was not as good as her? What a joke! How could the daughter-in-law that Jun Fengling fancied be inferior to such a pretentious woman? No, it's not like that. Schwerower's severed arm throbbed in pain and her body started to twitch. However, in order to defend herself, she forcefully held on. I didn't want to seduce young Master Shao, it was young Master Shao. He wanted to molest me. I merely rejected him and he cut off my arm. Jun Fengling was furious. My son wanted to molest you? Who do you think you are? You can't even compare to my daughter-in-law's toes. Would my son give up a beautiful daughter-in-law to molest a disgusting woman like you? Meng, you can't be unreasonable. Schwerower's face turned pale and she continued to defend herself. You didn't see anything. How can you prove that I seduced young Master Shao? She could not admit it no matter what. Otherwise, Jun Fengling would not let her off. You said that you didn't want to seduce my son? Then what are you doing here? Jun Fengling sneered. If you really have no intentions, you should stay in the woodshed. Why are you in the main courtyard? Yi Qi, who was initially anxious, was stunned after hearing Jun Fengling's words. Yes, if Schwerower really had no intentions, why didn't she stay in the room and wait for the injustice to be cleared? Why did she come to Yun Shao? Yi Qi was confused. All these years she had trusted Schwerower deeply. Naturally, she did not dare to believe that it was all a lie. Master, madam, this subordinate has brought him here. At this moment, the people who went to arrest them had already brought the two guards over. When the two of them saw Schwerower lying in a pool of blood, their legs went soft and they fell to the ground in despair. The thing they were most worried about still happened. Speak. Jun Fengling frowned and said coldly, Who allowed you to let Schwerower leave without permission? The two guards immediately came back to their senses and kowtowed fiercely. Madam, this subordinate knows his mistake and is willing to die as an apology. I only ask that Madam spare Miss Xue. Until now, these two guards were still protecting Schwerower. He was even willing to die in exchange for her life. Jun Fengling vaguely sensed an unusual aura. She was sure that her two guards didn't know Schwerower at all. Why were they willing to die for her in such a short span of a day? Something's not right. Yun Luofeng seemed to sense something and raised his eyebrows. I want to examine their bodies. Jun Fengling looked at Yun Luofeng in confusion. Did you discover something? What's wrong with their bodies? Chapter 827. Yun Luofeng silently walked to the side of the two guards. He frowned slightly when he sensed the smell coming from their bodies. The aphrodisiac was colorless and tasteless to others, but she could still sense it in front of Yun Luofeng. The two of them have been poisoned by the aphrodisiac. Yun Luofeng lifted his head slightly and said indifferently, Boom! When Yun Luofeng mentioned the aphrodisiac, Schwerower's mind exploded. She knew. How could she know? Schwerower bit her lips. She thought about how Yun Shao was unaffected by the aphrodisiac, and how Yun Luofeng sensed the aphrodisiac so quickly. She suddenly felt that she had been tricked. Aphrodisiac? Jun Fengling was stunned. She did not know medicine, but she knew about aphrodisiac. She did not expect Schwerower to bring the aphrodisiac to harm her son. Instantly, Jun Fengling was enraged. She looked at Yi Qi angrily and said, Look, this is your friend. She can forget about leaving the Yi residence today. Yi Qi's face was pale. She hurriedly looked at Schwerower, hoping for an explanation. However, there was nothing. Schwerower widened her eyes in panic and stared at Yun Luofeng. At that moment, her heart turned cold. Could it be that Schwerower's motive for coming to the Yi residence was for Yun Shao? Fenger, can you cure the two of them? Jun Fengling looked at Yun Luofeng again and asked. Yun Luofeng smiled and said, The aphrodisiac is not a serious illness. The two of them were just bewitched. I only need one needle to make them go back to normal. Then Yun Luofeng took out a needle pouch from his clothes and carefully took out a silver needle. He then inserted it into the guard's Shanting acupuncture point. In no time, the two guards regained their clarity. They looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what had happened. After a long time, the two of them remembered what they had just done and their expressions changed drastically. Sir, madam, please have mercy. I don't know what happened, but when Schweror begged me, I couldn't reject her. Please give me another chance. The guard kowtowed fiercely and begged. Although this wasn't your intention, if you hadn't given her a chance, she wouldn't have been able to harm you with her charm. So you still have to pay the price for your mistakes. Jun Fengling looked heroic. Men, take the two of them down. Lock them up for 3 months and deduct half a year's salary. The guards understood that Jun Fengling was being merciful by giving them such a punishment. They hurriedly kowtowed to express their gratitude and followed the other 2 guards down. Since the aphrodisiac had been removed, they didn't even glance at Schweror. Suddenly, a man in black walked up to Jun Fengling's ear and whispered a few words to her. The smile on Jun Fengling's lips deepened when she heard the man in black's words. Bring him here. Yes, madam. The man in black accepted the order and retreated. After the man in black left, Jun Fengling looked at the ashen-faced Schweror and said, Schweror, I've brought someone to see you. You will definitely be very interested in this person. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-clothed man walked over with a burly man in his hand. He threw the burly man to the ground. Chapter 828. It's you. Yi Qi was stunned, her face full of astonishment. It seems like you know him. Jun Fengling glanced at Yi Qi, his tone indifferent. Yi Qi nodded slightly. When Roar and I were in the restaurant, this was the man who informed her that her house was on fire. The man in front of her was the one who had gone to inform Schweror of the fire. Yi Qi naturally had an impression of him. At this moment, Yi Qi did not notice that when Schweror saw the man who had been caught, her pale face became even more desperate. You only know that he's the one who went to inform Schweror, but you don't know that he's Schweror's uncle. Jun Fengling laughed coldly. Yi Qi's mind went blank as if she had been struck by lightning. She turned to Schweror blankly. Can you tell me what's going on? What's your relationship with this man? Since this man was Schweror's uncle, why did he have time to inform Schweror but not to save her? Moreover, she did not forget that it was because of this man's words that she had misunderstood fire. Oh, save me. The burly man saw Schweror lying in a pool of blood and said hurriedly, I'm your uncle, you can't just watch me die. Admit that you did everything and it has nothing to do with me. Schweror's body trembled. She bit her lips and did not say a word. Her slightly lowered eyes were filled with despair and a layer of hatred that could not be erased. Madam Yi, please let me go. Seeing that Schweror did not respond, the burly man hurriedly knelt in front of Jun Fengling. It's Schweror. She returned to the Xue family that day and claimed that she could become Madame Ye's daughter-in-law. But she needed our help. That's why I listened to her and reported the fire. I even deliberately said that the one who set the fire was a little girl in red. Jun Fengling raised his eyebrows. Then do you know who set the fire? I know. The burly man did not dare to hide anything. It's Schweror. She set the fire herself and burned her mother to death. The Xue family said that they could accept her, but not her bedridden mother. In order to get rid of this burden, she decided to burn her mother as well. At that time, I could still hear her mother's mournful cries. She screamed Schweror's name, but she didn't know that the one who set the fire was the daughter she was so proud of. After the burly man finished speaking, Yi Qi's body stiffened. She looked at Schweror in disbelief and asked in a hoarse voice, Did you set the fire? It wasn't me. Schweror screamed. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. For, Schweror said. It's Schweror. You. Xue, the man said. Schweror she. Is. She. Schweror, the man said. You told the Xue family that as long as you set the house on fire, Miss Yi Qi would take pity on you and let you live in the Yi residence. As long as you enter the Yi residence, you will be able to seduce young Master Xiao. Yi Qi smiled, but there was a hint of bitterness in her smile. Yi Qi smiled bitterly and said, I was curious why you were so late today. You told me that you were late because you had something to attend to at the last minute. Turns out that you had something to attend to. Chapter 829. Yi Qi was already walking towards Schweror as she spoke. Qi. Schweror looked a little flustered. Don't you trust me? Yi Qi sneered. How could I not trust you? It's because I trust you that my big brother is bitterly disappointed. It's also because I trust you that I've always been used by you. Big brother is right. Even if I'm sold, I'll still count the money for her. At this moment, Yi Qi's tone was filled with despair. She was obviously hurt by her most trusted friend. Schwerower, you don't have to explain anymore. If it was my big brother, second brother, or second sister-in-law who went to investigate the truth, I would definitely believe you. However, this time my adoptive mother has personally sent people there. How could I possibly trust you? Yi Qi said with a cold smile. Besides, I still remember that when I saw you today, you were hanging on a straw. Now that I think about it, that straw is the evidence of your murder. Schwerower became dispirited. She knew that no matter how much she tried to explain, it would be useless against her. Suddenly, she started roaring with laughter. Her laughter was desolate, and it was like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves as it reverberated in the wind. Yes. So what if I did it? My fate is so tragic. My father doesn't want me, and I need to rely on my sick mother. Do you know how much effort I've put in to return to the Xue family all these years? As long as I become Yun Zhao's wife, I will be protected by Madame Yi. By then, the Xue family will carry me back in a sedan chair. If it wasn't for fate, how could I have done such a thing? So Yi Qi, I really envy you. You have no parents, but you were lucky enough to be adopted by the Yi family. Why don't I have the same luck? Up until now, Schwerower had pushed all her mistakes to fate. However, she had never reflected on her own actions. Yi Qi closed her eyes slightly. After a long while, she opened her eyes. Foster mother, I've said it before. If Schwerower really wronged Fire, no matter if I kill or cut her, I won't say a word for her. Amor, take her back. Jun Fengling sighed. I'll handle the rest. All right. Yishima glanced at Yi Qi. Let's go. After what happened today, he understood that Yi Qi would definitely change. She would not be as gullible as she used to be. Chi-Chi. Schwerower panicked and reached out to grab Yi Qi. Don't go. I know I was wrong. I really was wrong. I don't want to die yet. Please don't leave me behind. In the past, Yi Qi would have stayed behind to plead for Schwerower. But now she followed Yishima without hesitation. Fenger, Jun Fengling smiled. How do you want to deal with her? Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin. She wants to seduce my man, that means she really likes men. Maybe the brothel will be interested in her. All right. Jun Fengling immediately slapped the table and made a decision. This woman has lost an arm, but her looks are passable. We should be able to sell her for a few dozen taels of silver. Upon hearing that she was going to be sent to the brothel, Schwerower hurriedly struggled. Unfortunately, before she could struggle, Yi Jingchen had already exhausted her strength. Someone, sell her to the Drunken Flower brothel. Also, tell the owner of the Drunken Flower brothel to take good care of her. Chapter 830. Yes. Hearing this, a guard immediately stepped forward and carried Schwerower over the wall. Schwerower had recovered from her initial despair. As long as Jun Fengling didn't kill her on the spot, she would have a chance to escape. She might even have a chance to take revenge. Unfortunately, dreams were beautiful but reality was cruel. Schwerower ignored the word take care in Jun Fengling's words. When she arrived at the Drunken Flower brothel, she finally understood what a real nightmare was. Those men were like wolves and tigers, each of them trying their best to torture her. In addition, her abilities had been destroyed, so how could she withstand the torment? Not long after, she passed away regretfully under the torment of those men. Since then, Schwerower no longer existed in this world. When the news of Schwerower's death reached Yi Qi, she was already crying tears of joy over Jun Fengling's pregnancy. How could she have the time to care about her? That's right. Over the past few months, Jun Fengling had completely recovered under Yun Luofeng's treatment. She was already pregnant. With this good news, Yi Jingchen and his wife naturally doted on Yun Luofeng to the core. They were afraid that he would melt in their mouths and fall in their hands. Yi Qi wasn't as hostile towards Yun Luofeng as she had been in the beginning. Instead, she was grateful that Yun Luofeng had helped Jun Fengling. Moreover, her behavior towards Yun Luofeng was instigated by Schwerower. Now that she knew Schwerower's true colors, how could she continue to be hostile towards her? But she had made so many mistakes that she didn't dare to face Yun Luofeng even now. At that moment, in the courtyard of the Yi residence, Yi Qi was about to instruct the kitchen to prepare Jun Fengling's meal when she heard a young girl's voice. Yi Qi, where is mother now? Yi was stunned. She raised her head and looked at the young girl's beautiful and charming face. She asked blankly, "Are you talking to me?" Yun Luofeng frowned. "I'm looking for her." Yi suddenly snapped out of her trance. She had mixed feelings. She's in the living room. The Yi family is here, and she's receiving them. I understand. Yun Luofeng turned and walked towards the living room. Suddenly, a delicate voice sounded out from behind her, causing her to stop in her tracks. "Sorry." Yi lowered her head and said apologetically, "I know you won't forgive me, but I still want to apologize to you. If I hadn't been so stupid back then, I wouldn't have listened to Shuiroer's provocation and done something that you hate." Yun Luofeng's back was facing Yi, and his voice was calm. "Yi, for the sake of my mother, I'll give you a piece of advice. Everyone in this world will harm you, but your family will never. Everyone in this world will harm you, only your family will never." Yi was stunned. She stared blankly at Yun Luofeng's back as he left. She could not come back to her senses for a long time. In the lobby, Yi Jingchen and Jun Fengling sat on the main seats and looked at the middle-aged man coldly. The middle-aged man put down the teacup in his hand and smiled. "Eldest young master, young madam, second young master has convinced the other elders in the clan to allow you to return to the Ye family. As for Kargalik, I will be in charge of it for the time being." Yi Jingchen's face darkened. He snorted coldly. Would that guy be so kind? He had his eyes on the Yi family firm's current strength. Does he want you to replace me? Let me tell you, I will never leave Kargalik. The Yi family firm now possessed items such as the spirit-gathering elixir, and had brought great benefits to the firm. How could his greedy brother let go of such a good thing? That was why he had sent someone to replace him. Chapter 831. Eldest young master, second young master is the future head of the Yi family after all. Since he wants you to leave Kargalik, how can you defy him? Actually, this is all your fault. If you hadn't married a hen that can't lay eggs, second young master wouldn't have become the future head of the Yi family. The middle-aged man relied on his power as the Yi family's second young master to look down on Yi Jingchen. In terms of talent and ability, Yi Jingchen was undoubtedly the best. Unfortunately, he had lost because he had married a hen that could not lay eggs. How could the future head of the Yi family not have an heir? Yi Jingchen laughed icily. I'm being chased out of Kargalik so that you can take over the Yi family business. Do you dare say that it wasn't because my younger brother coveted the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid? The middle-aged man smiled. He was not angry. Eldest young master, only you would be so stupid as to sell something like the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid. If I were in charge of the Yi family business, I would use all the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid to increase the Yi family's power. Furthermore, I will recruit the person who supplied the spirit-gathering elixir and make him work for me. Haha! Yi Jingchen burst into laughter. His laughter was laced with anger. Do you think that a mysterious and powerful person who could produce something like the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid would willingly work for the Yi family? Eldest young master, the fact that you can't recruit him means that you don't have the ability. The middle-aged man slowly rose and smiled. After all, you've already been chased out of the Yi family. If second young master hadn't been kind enough to allow you to return, you would never have been able to step into the Yi family. However, second young master is different from you. He is the future head of the Yi family. When others hear his name, they can't wait to curry favor with him. Why would they reject him? Yi Jingchen's expression changed abruptly. His gentle eyes burned with anger and his tightly clenched fists trembled uncontrollably. However, at this moment, a languid laughter suddenly rang out from outside the hall. Don't you know that the person who sold the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid was only willing to trade with him because he heard of father and mother's reputation? If it had been someone else, I'm afraid that they wouldn't have been able to obtain the medicinal liquid. Outside the hall, sunlight poured down. The young girl was dressed in white and leaned lazily against the door frame. The corners of her lips curled into a devilish smile as she glanced at the middle-aged man sitting in the hall. A cold light flashed in the depths of her eyes. She had obviously been here for some time. Seeing that Jun Fengling had a guest, she didn't come out to disturb him. But in the end, she couldn't help but speak out. These people made it sound like they were being merciful by summoning Yi Jingchen back to the Yi family, but in reality, they coveted the spirit-gathering liquid in the Yi family's business. But now he was still acting so pompously. Did he really think that everyone in the world was a fool? Who are you? How dare you? The middle-aged man's face darkened. Who allowed you to appear here? You really have no manners at all. Since the appearance of the middle-aged man, Jun Fengling had been silent. Now that he had seen him teach Yun Luofeng a lesson, his expression immediately darkened. She's my daughter-in-law. You'd better be polite. Daughter-in-law? The middle-aged man frowned slightly and a look of disgust flashed across his eyes. So this is your bastard's wife. At the end of the day, she's just a bastard. Eldest young master, even if you want to marry, you should find a better woman. This kind of woman even gave birth to a bastard. What right does she have to be the young madam of the Yi family? Chapter 832. Jun Fengling was enraged and broke the table into two with a bang. Then he leaped towards the middle-aged man, his eyes filled with murderous intent. However, a figure was one step ahead of her. In just 2 steps, the figure arrived in front of the middle-aged man and kicked him in the crotch. Under the intense pain, the middle-aged man let out a mournful howl. Bastard? Then I'll make sure you can't even have a bastard now. The young lady's eyes were wild and her lips curled up slightly. Didn't you insult Yun Xiao as a bastard? If that's the case, then I'll make sure he can't even have a bastard. Damned girl, just you wait. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and glared at Yun Luofeng, then turned towards Yi Jingchen and his wife. Eldest young master, young madam. Don't you owe me an explanation? I'm someone sent by second young master after all. Yi Jingchen coughed dryly and said, What happened just now? Why didn't I see anything? Wife, did you see anything? Jun Fengling had already retracted his killing intent and was trying to hold back his laughter. I saw that Yi Ran didn't manage to steady himself and fell. Who knew that he would just happen to straddle a pillar, making his balls hurt? The middle-aged man who was addressed as Yi Ran almost went mad from anger. This was really a shameless family. They were simply lying with their eyes closed. Good, very good. I'll report this to eldest young master. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth fiercely. His hand was still on his crotch, and his face was covered in cold sweat from the pain. Wait! Seeing that the middle-aged man was about to turn and leave, the young lady's lazy shout suddenly rang out, causing him to stop in his tracks. What else do you want? The middle-aged man turned around and glared at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng smiled devilishly. Is the Yi family's rule that a servant is allowed to shout at his master? The middle-aged man was stunned. All these years, he had been used to acting like a tyrant with second young master. How could he still remember Yi Jingchen's identity? My master is the second young master. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead as he tried to argue his way out of this. Your surname is Yi. The young lady raised her arrogant brows. Since your surname is Yi, then you're a dog of the Yi family. But you don't place master in your eyes at all. Then what do you want? Kneel down and apologize. The young lady's words were merciless, causing Yi Ran's body to tremble. Apologize? Impossible. I only recognize second young master. I don't recognize anyone else. Bang! After Yi Ran said this, the young lady's leg kicked out fiercely, sending his body flying out and crashing fiercely into the wall. He felt pain all over his body, and even a few of his bones were broken. Apologize. The young lady closed in on Yi Ran, looking down at him coldly with an insolent gaze. I don't. Before Yi Ran could finish his words, the young lady raised her leg once again and slid down fiercely from the air. She stomped on his chest, causing him to throw up